Welcome in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 7 a.m. here on Jox. Appreciate everybody being with us. It's July 21st. A lot that we got to get to, a lot that we got to get through. A lot of exciting stuff that happened last week. We have tons of SEC-centric information. We will go through the SEC preseason media poll, so we'll talk about that. We will have Paul Finebaum on here in about 15 minutes to talk about that as well. Kind of put a bow on what was last week. We got Taylor Zarzer coming up in 1 hour's time. What Scotty Scheffler is doing right now is pretty outrageous. I mean, it really is. It's to the point where I almost feel like if there's a tournament to be played, it's over before it starts. I mean, that is not normal. That is not something I'm used to seeing in at least 25 years. And Scotty wins again yesterday. Just tons of reaction now surrounding golf. We're not going to major in golf here on the show. We'll talk about it today, and that's probably about it. But I don't think I've seen domination like this since Tiger Woods in 2001. And people will always compare to 2001. And who can really blame him? I mean, Tiger won the Tiger Slam in 2001, 4 consecutive majors. And I think just the level of dominance that we've seen from Tiger, pretty outrageous. Level of dominance that we've seen from Scotty, pretty outrageous. Here's the difference. Scotty's playing against athletes. No disrespect to the golfers of the early 2000s and the late 90s. Those guys had pot bellies and smoked cigarettes in between holes.
A different look how big?
It was a different era. It was a different era of athlete. It doesn't take anything away because at the time they didn't realize some of the things they were doing to their body. They didn't value the physical weight room, calisthenic nature of the sport, learning about rubber bands, all this advancements from a body standpoint, from a height weight standpoint. I mean, these guys that he's playing now and beating now are actually unbelievable. And there were things that they did back in the day with lesser equipment and all this other stuff that made what they did incredible as well. But I think the guys that are on tour now are just more well-equipped to be a challenge physically for the top player in the world. Tiger was the first real freakish athlete, I think, that we'd seen in golf in quite some time. Now, people say, well, Jack Nicklaus was like that. People say Gary Player was like that. Maybe he was. I don't know. It was before my time. I'm not going to pretend to try to know. But Scotty's doing it against guys that grew up, were inspired by Tiger Woods, chose golf as opposed to other sports in some cases. And Scotty is still lapping the field. We'll talk to Taylor Zarzer about that at 8 o'clock. Dan Wetzel will join the show as well. Talk a little bit about the relationship between the SEC and the Big Ten, where we're going, where it's at, and how we can hopefully navigate this thing together. You're always welcome to join the show, 205-834-9450. We will be taking your phone calls all week. Cole will be out all week, so feel like it's, kind of important to get y'all involved. So we'll have a bunch of open-ended discussions, a bunch of open-ended conversations, and things that you can get involved with. You can always tweet the show at Mac and Cube. And we appreciate all of you that are listening on the app and on joxfm.com. One of the themes of the day, I want to know from a fan standpoint, because I was just going through schedules this past week and kind of looking through it and evaluating it and kind of trying to find the potholes. But I was kind of talking to buddies this weekend, and I kept getting the same response. Oh, that game scares me to death. Oh, that game's concerning. We better be up for that one. That game's a problem. So one of the themes of the day today is, as a fan, doesn't matter what school you're a fan of, Doesn't matter what league you cheer for or what your affiliation is. You could be UAB. I don't care. If you want to interpret it as you will, if you are a fan of the Vestavia Rebels, by all means, what game scares you to death? Like what game is a problem? Like last year, for example, hindsight being 2020, as an Alabama fan, the Vanderbilt game scared me to death. Why? Because I know Diego Pavia is a problem. I also know that it's on the road, can be sleepy. I also know it's an early start, relatively speaking. I also know that it was the week after Georgia. Like, that game should scare you to death. All right? I mean, that game is a problem. Doesn't mean they should have lost it, but should have been a game that had everyone's attention. And be careful with this one, guys. Don't take this team too lightly. So I kind of want to ask that question today. And I was just going through schedules, and I've picked out one for every SEC team. A game that should just scare everyone to death. And I'll be curious to get your take on it. I also think that some of the ones that I chose are probably not the ones that you would pick. Like, for example, if you're, let's say, Auburn, I don't feel like the Georgia game at home should be one that scares you to death. Okay, yeah, might be your hardest game. Might be the toughest game you have on the schedule. That one or the Alabama game or whatever. That might be a tough game. Very big difference between tough and one that's scary. You lose to Georgia, no one's opinion of you changes. I don't think. You get blasted by Georgia, okay. Yeah, maybe that can have an impact. But Tennessee's gotten blasted by Georgia multiple times the last few years. Everyone still thinks they're good, right? No, I mean, it's not like that's going to have a huge impact on how the perception is changed. When you lose to some of these teams and or you play some of these teams close, perception of you changes drastically. So I'd be curious to see exactly how y'all see it when we're going through this here in just a little bit. We'll ask Paul Finebaum about it here in just a little bit as well. Another thing that happened this weekend, huge news. Oh my gosh, what news? I am just amazed. Summer League wrapped up.
You amazed it took this long?
I didn't know it was still going on.
What are you talking about? Just turn on ESPN. It's on about every other network, every other time.
I haven't watched ESPN very much this week, I suppose.
No, not just this week. Like the last 2 months, feels like.
I think the
finals end, and then like 2 days later, boom, Summer League. What?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with Summer League. I don't have a problem with it. I actually have found watching Summer League in the past quite interesting. But partly because I want to see Wemby. I want to see Cooper Flagg. I don't really care who wins the championship. Why do they have a championship? What is the point? The Charlotte Hornets won their first ever Summer League title. Colin Kniffel from Duke earns the MVP. So here's what's funny is, like, I looked up something a little earlier and people wrote like Summer League takeaways. Is this a sign of things to come for Colin Kniffel? Like, are we being serious here? Like, we are honestly going to take preseason performances amongst exclusively rookies and draw conclusions from these? Like, I watched Wemby last year in the Summer League, I might add. Wasn't overly impressed. I mean, he looked like a unicorn. But I knew that the people that I was talking to and the people that you were probably talking to and all the experts around the NBA knew, yeah, this Wembanyama guy's probably going to be pretty good. So disregard the 7 turnover performance he had in his opener. All right, that'll be easy for me to do. I just won't put any stock into it whatsoever. I just didn't know. I did not know that there are so many conclusions that can be drawn off of a Summer League performance. That was news to me. Found that kind of comical. So for those of you that are interested, the Charlotte Hornets won their first championship ever in anything.
Heck yeah.
So next up for them, the mid-season title. You get the mid-season title, you might make the playoffs. You make the playoffs, you might have a chance to get out of the first round. You got the first round, hey, you're in the top 16 in the league.
Oh, hold on. They can win a play-in game.
That's a fair point, actually.
Hang a banner for that.
Yeah. So of all the meaningless, I guess you would say, participation trophies that the NBA is now giving out, I might be willing to go as far as to say Summer League is at the very bottom. And that is someone that like actually likes the NBA from time to time. Like I'm not sitting there grinding on Hawks Grizzlies in November.
Are you ever?
No.
Okay.
I'm not grinding on Hawks. If it's the championship, I'll watch it. If it's the playoffs, I'll watch it. I just don't find the sport very consumable. I think it's terrible right now compared to the NBA that I grew up with. But then again, that's a little nostalgic and also a little bit of it's just not good. I just don't like seeing teams run down the court, jack up a three, long rebound, run down the court, jack up a three, long rebound, run down the court, jack up a three, make, bang, and then off and running the other way. It just doesn't do much for me. Still enjoy some of the storylines, and I'll tell you this: I do kind of get into summer free agency because God is my witness. Every year, there's going to be a guy that signs for a max contract that I've literally never heard of.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I've never heard of this guy. I mean, there's a handful of guys that I've never heard of. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at some of, and like I said, I loosely watch the NBA, not watching a ton of guys down the bench, but like I've literally never heard of Shake Milton. Not one time.
I'm sorry, what now?
Shake Milton.
Okay.
He got waived by the Lakers to make space for Marcus Smart. Heard of Marcus Smart.
Right.
Know quite a bit about him. Not super familiar with like Desmond Bane. You know Desmond Bane?
Yeah, the Batman villain. Yeah.
He got traded.
Oh.
By Memphis.
To Gotham?
They also signed PJ Hall to a two-way deal. So that's something you just got to keep an eye on.
I thought every player played two-way in basketball.
Normally, but yeah, I think that's like we might see him in Birmingham.
Oh, okay.
Or are we the Pelicans or are we the Grizzlies?
Both? Depends.
I feel like the squadron's associated with
they are, right? But we often get Grizzly stuff here.
That's true, but it's Pelicans or the squadron.
Yeah.
Okay, so we won't see PJ Hall because he's on Memphis. I don't know where their team is. I have not. Do you know a guy named DeAnthony Melton?
No, but I guess he went to UConn.
Don't know him. Like I've heard the name Jonathan Kuminga. I've heard the name Al Horford. Like looking at all the news, like all the NBA news, free agency news. Like, there's a bunch of guys I've literally never heard of that are getting paid millions of dollars. And I'm amazed at this. And I do it every summer. I always do this. It's usually around this time when I kind of get into it. I'm like, I want to see what's going on here in NBA free agency world. And I'm always blown away. Like, I've never heard of that guy, and he just signed a deal for $74 million. Huh. Must be nice to be in the NBA. All right, when we come back, Paul Finebaum will join us. We'll ask him what's the scariest game on some teams' schedules next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning on Jox 94.5. Appreciate all of you being with us. We are on Jox across the country now, it feels like. We're Jox all over the place. Jox in Montgomery, Jox in Mobile, Jox in Huntsville. We appreciate you guys very much. That's obviously the ump in Huntsville. So appreciate you guys for being with us. And as always, on Monday morning, 7:15, Paul Finebaum joins the show. So we'll welcome him in. Thanks to our friends at Craneworks.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah! The big dog's got it.
Paul Finebaum on Mac and Cube in the morning is brought to you by Craneworks. Lift it, buy it, rent it, the big dog's got it. Now, Paul Finebaum.
Paul, what's going on, my friend? How are you this morning?
I am doing great, Greg. It's great to reunite the band here on a normal Monday.
Oh, yeah, normal Monday here. Back in action here as we are in Birmingham. I'm assuming you're around here or maybe in Charlotte. Either way, not media days. So we got that going for us. Look, media day is getting kicked off for the ACC and the Big Ten this week. Both will get underway tomorrow. What do you anticipate hearing? It kind of feels like after last week, media days at the SEC, kind of, I don't want to say deflating, but kind of newsless. There really wasn't a whole lot to be made that was actually rooted in truth and reality. And now here we are a week later, and it feels like there's even less I want to find out about these schemes coming up. So what are we supposed to make of media days nowadays?
Well, media days is essentially, Greg, a television event. Yeah, we understand that. We work for television networks, the broadcast media days. And I know a lot of people have criticized it, but it is an inflection point. It is the beginning of the football season before teams actually get on the field. There's nothing wrong with it. I think the fact that there's so much media out there with spring meetings and caravans and magazines and podcasts that by the time you get to the middle of July, there really isn't a whole lot to say. Where if you turn the clock back 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, this was the first time anybody really had a clue. I mean, the grocery store magazines were just coming out in July. Nobody really knew anything, and now everybody knows everything.
It is kind of funny because it's easy to get information, especially on your school. But I just don't feel like the coaches, they're all like, I was having this conversation the other day, Paul. All the coaches now could run Fortune 500 companies. Like, I really believe that. I think they're all really buttoned up. I think they're all really sharp. We don't have the characters that we once had because the job is demanding because of how often you're going to be in front of the media. Even as recent as 5 or 6 years ago, you had real characters at a lot of these different schools. Now that's not the case. Why do you think that is?
Well, because they have to pass a more rigid test. I mean, in addition to winning, their job is to raise money, whether it's indirect or direct. And I think if you bring a character in front of a board, so to speak, you're less likely to want to hire him. And as far as what the coaches say, it's almost like what are doctors and lawyers? What is their motto? First do no harm. I mean, coaches go in there thinking to themselves, I'm not going to say anything stupid. I remember I was talking to Drinkwitz, I think it was last year on the set, and he said something. He said, no, I'm not going to go there. He said, I'm not going to say anything crazy this time around because he had the previous time around. And so first of all, it could be better, but it's not going to be. John Talty wrote an article the other day where he said if you invited fewer people, you did less interviews. Part of it's the fact that once a coach comes in the big room, he goes to the radio room, he goes to the digital room, he goes to the ESPN room. I mean, those guys are just like shaking their head. I was talking to Mike Elko late Thursday afternoon, and we were talking about his background. And when it ended, he said to me privately, he said, thank goodness, that was fun. I was able to talk about something other than my depth chart, which I've been talking about for the last 6 hours. But that's what also people want to hear. They're not there to get feature stories. They are there to get information on their football team.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it's just strange because we want to hear stuff about the teams, but then again, we know we're not going to get anything about the teams. So about the only chance you have is to kind of go off the grid and off the wall. And it doesn't seem like many coaches are really willing to do that. But you look at, we're doing a theme this week, Paul, about games that fans should be scared of. We'll do that throughout the course of the show today. We'll start with Auburn. Is there a game that they should legitimately be very, very concerned about in your eyes?
Yes, it's the first one. It's the Friday night game against Baylor. And Greg, I don't think a lot of people take Baylor seriously. You've been there. You understand what that stadium can be like, especially on a Friday night opening of the season against a big SEC school. And the reason why I think it's so important is that if Auburn loses that game, that's one that most people believe they should win. Then they're suddenly behind the curtain, where every swing game becomes magnified. And I think for that reason, it is the most important game on the schedule. And that doesn't mean that other games won't matter. Of course they will. The Alabama game at the end of the year is a game you'll hear a lot of people say Auburn has a chance to win, whatever that means. So I'm really focused on that game. At the moment, I think Auburn will win. But if they don't, then the season could really legitimately get off the rails.
It's an interesting observation. It's one we've been talking about for a couple weeks now, just how insane that day has a chance to be for Auburn. They win that, they're in good shape. They lose that, the sky is falling in many people's eyes. We'll go over to Alabama. We'll get you out of here with this. Is there a game that you think should be concerning?
I don't think it's a game, even though some people will try to manufacture that. But I think as you go through the schedule, it could be something like the South Carolina game. And I know coming out of media days, everybody likes South Carolina, but Vegas doesn't. And I think that's the kind of game, a South Carolina, a Missouri game, probably more South Carolina, that Alabama really can't afford to lose. And I say that because there's the Georgia game's built into the cake, the LSU game. Tennessee's supposed to be a little less. So if you look at 2 or 3 games that Alabama could be struggling in, and I'll even include the Auburn game at the end of the season as a wild card for the most obvious reason, but that game in Columbia, we know what that stadium can be like. I don't think there are many Alabama fans that want to look at South Carolina the way I think the media does, because we know how good Sellers is. We know how much they have on that team. So that's where I would land there.
I think it's a great call. Paul, always appreciate the time, my friend. Thank you so much. Have a great TV hit, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Greg. See you soon.
All right, Paul Finebaum joining us here on Jox. Appreciate his perspective. I kind of agree with him. I think the South Carolina game is a tricky one. I do think South Carolina is getting plenty of attention, so it's not one that you'll be caught off guard with. There's a handful of teams I find very scary in this conference. You're almost better off describing the teams that aren't scary than the teams that are. I think there's as many as 15 teams that can play the major spoiler this year. And the only one that isn't is Mississippi State in my eyes, frankly. And part of the reason why I think they're still going to have some challenges on the defensive side. And if it becomes a shootout, do you trust a team that is still just in year 2 trying to figure out their system? Or do you trust a team that might be able to get done on both sides of the ball? Like, I think they're going to get somebody. I don't know who. Mississippi State will beat somebody this year of significance. I just don't know when that's going to happen or who it's going to happen against. I do think Tennessee early in the season is one where I'd be maybe a little concerned about. We'll talk about that game here in a bit. But, John, as you're looking through schedules and you're looking through the SEC, like, is there any team that's really scary to you?
Overall, there's not a team that's just, oh my gosh, I can't believe we have to actually face them. There are some that, yes, they are going to be challenging. Yes, there are paths to victory, but it may be hard to find. But for each of the 16 teams, there's a path to victory for most of the teams on their schedule. So everyone, that's also the fun thing about this league, is that the depth of it is that, and we saw it last year, Alabama can lose to a team like Vanderbilt if they're not playing 100% of their game. So Alabama actually absolutely can lose 100% of the games on their schedule. Well, maybe not Eastern Illinois, but at least of the conference schedule, yeah, Alabama absolutely can. Georgia can this year. Texas can. And in years past, I feel like that may not have been the case for some of the upper echelon teams, but right now, yeah, every team is vulnerable, and every team in this league on their schedule has got a game that, like, how are we going to win this one?
There's definitely a bunch of those, that's for sure. All right, when we come back, we'll continue with this conversation. We'll start to bounce it around the SEC. Taylor Zarzer coming up in 30 minutes. Talk a little about what Scotty Scheffler is currently doing in the golf world and where golf might be heading from here. We might even ask him an SEC football question as well when we return right here on Jox. Welcome back to McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, Jox 94.5. As we continue on here on a Monday, I don't know about y'all. Like Mondays always take me a little while to kind of get back in the mix. Like I usually feel like by Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm cooking with gas. Like brain is sharp, body feels back, don't feel bloated or whatever, like swollen. My back doesn't hurt. Like usually by Wednesday, I feel great. By Tuesday, I feel better, but for whatever reason, Monday, it just takes me a little while to get going.
Monday's your preseason?
No, it's not. Like what's funny is I probably get the most amount of sleep I get on Sunday to Monday, like from Sunday night to Monday morning. Like that's probably the most amount of sleep I get in a given week.
Maybe that's why, because your body's not used to, oh, wait a minute, what is all this multiple hours of refreshment? I don't like this. And you're shorting the rest. Your body's used to that.
Yeah.
So you give a little too much, and you're like, your body's like, doesn't know what to do with all this happiness.
Yeah. I don't know. All I know is that it just, for whatever reason, I keep trying to like flip the switch and ramp it up, and I just, doesn't matter how much coffee I drink, I can't quite get where I want to go. All right, we will start our discussion. Part of the theme of the day is fear. And I don't like that fear is the theme of the day, but you understand where I'm coming from when you understand the perspective from which I'm looking at this. Like, there are games on every team's schedule that should scare you. It doesn't matter how bad the team is. It's more often than not, it's the circumstances with which the game will be played. More or less man, I hate having to go on the road, and the week after we played a physical bloodbath game and trying to ramp it up against a team that has some firepower. You know, a team that can score, for example. They're a team that's just super physical, and the following week, all of a sudden, it's going to become a fluid back and forth brawl. To me, there's games on every schedule that are very, very difficult. But the more I've kind of gotten to be a little older, I realize how challenging it is in week one to know what you have. There are very few teams coming into week one that can tell you with certainty, and very few coaches, by the way, who are with their players every day, and they'll tell you, hey, this part of my roster is concerning. This part of my roster is a little uncomfortable. Yeah, we really need to stay healthy there. If we get an injury at that spot, we're going to have some serious problems. Like, there are coaches that will tell you that right now. They have enough of a feel. But no coach can tell you with certainty what their team's going to look like at this point. They can hope. And coaches at this point, too, they're always looking at the things that are going to get them. Like, they're not looking at, oh, we're great at quarterback. They're looking at, you know what, we're weak at wide receiver. They're not going to sit there and say, oh, man, our linebackers are amazing. They're going to look there and say, yeah, you know what, our defensive line is just not very good, so our linebackers better be great. They look at what's going to get them. They try to see the bullet with their name on it. They don't try to see what's going to elevate them to the next level. They can just bank on those parts of their team producing, and just hope the parts of their team that are liabilities don't come to the forefront. And they do whatever they can to try to cover that up. But there are games on all these schedules right now that are just really, really concerning. I mean, games where you win it, you get no credit. You lose it, everyone thinks you should shut the program down. That's the reality. There are 1 million examples of that, I might add. I mean, 1 million examples of games every year that you play and you do not stand to benefit 1 ounce from victory. Not one. Now, I think if you listen to our show, I'd like to assume that our show is a little more cerebral than most when it comes to evaluating the schedules, evaluating the games that should be concerning. For example, if Colorado beats Georgia Tech, all right, using that as a week one example. If Colorado beats Georgia Tech, we on our show will tell you that is one heck of a win for Coach Prime. People on every other channel or people that cover the sport loosely will tell you, yeah, it's fine. Oh, Coach Prime, back again. No Shador, no problem.
Was Shador holding Dion back?
Yeah.
First on my first take.
That does feel right. I could see that happening. I could see that being a headline. But just examples of games like that where you deserve immense credit, even though you might be a slight favorite in some cases, these games should be of concern. So we will start with games that are on week one involving SEC teams that scare me to death. And you're more than welcome to tweet into the show at Mac and Cube. You're more than welcome to text into the show, 205-834-9450. You can also call into the show on that number as well, 205-834-9450. I'll start with week one for SEC teams. Texas, Ohio State is not a game in which I'm scared for Texas. Absolutely not. Like, to me, that is a game that if Texas loses, no one's opinion of them is going to change that drastically. They're going to sit there and actually probably have a stronger opinion about Ohio State being a repeat national championship contender than they are about Texas's program being in a tailspin. That game should not be worrisome. It's not. Shouldn't be. But I can tell you one that is. Syracuse at Tennessee.
Yep.
No one wants to talk about that. And Tennessee is a team that's fresh off a playoff run. Syracuse is probably the quietest 10-win team in the season from a year ago. Syracuse does have to figure out what their quarterback situation is going to be like. They have a few guys that are vying for that position. They have a bunch of new faces in the transfer portal. But Syracuse is a team that can, at least if it were like last year, they could throw it all over the yard. Guess what concerns me this year about Tennessee? Their secondary, assuming Jermod McCoy is not at 100%. Week 1. Remember, he tore his ACL before the spring, or right at the beginning of the spring. And if their number one corner is out, that is a problem. Guess what also Syracuse has done? Done a pretty decent job of adding guys up front defensively that can play some ball. I'm also a little concerned about Tennessee's offensive line. Also a little concerned about their quarterback. In week 1, playing a legit opponent, I'm not saying Syracuse wins the game. If I had to pick it right now, I'd pick Tennessee. I'm just telling you that game should be concerning. And you better be totally buttoned up, because if you're not, that could be a huge issue. I'll give you another one. Auburn-Baylor, and we don't need to spend a ton of time on this one. We have long documented throughout the course of the offseason how dangerous this game is for Auburn. There's a reason why they are currently a 1-point favorite. 1-point favorite. Now it's on the road, so on a neutral site, that's what? 3.5-point favorite? But as someone that has grown up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that has called games at McLean Stadium in Waco, Texas, that has been around this Baylor program enough to know that their quarterback's a dude, their running back's a dude, and Dave Aranda, the defensive coordinator / head coach, those guys are dudes. This is a Baylor team that is just a few years removed from winning a Sugar Bowl. No one wants to remember that. But this team won the Big 12 3 years ago and beat Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. And I know Matt Corral got hurt in that Sugar Bowl game. But this program has seen some pretty high highs in recent years. Baylor has been a player in the national spotlight far more recently than Auburn. No one wants to think about that. No one wants to acknowledge that. No one's focused on that. But Auburn's best, we haven't seen it in 7 years. Thereabouts. Baylor's best, we haven't seen it in 3 years. Meanwhile, Auburn is going to come into the season with major expectations. And the Big 12, as someone that spent some time at the Big 12 Championship or Big 12 Media Days last week, a couple weeks back, don't think for a second that league does not acknowledge the importance of playing well against the Southeastern Conference. That might be the most important game on Baylor's schedule. They will be all in for that one. And Jake Spavital, their offensive coordinator, very aware of some of the ways that Auburn will try to defend him. Very aware of what that game could mean for his program going forward.
John jumps in on the text line and says, I think the Auburn versus Baylor game is the most important game of Freeze's tenure for a few reasons. Overall direction of the program, was Peyton Thorne really that bad? Has the team improved?
I think all those things are fair. And another thing, too, they've kind of gone all in this year. Like, it's no secret that Auburn's pushing all their chips in with some of the additions they've made in the portal and the amount of money that's been spent on this roster, all those things. Like, they're going all in, which is great. I think that's fantastic. And all it takes is a quarterback returning 90 miles from his hometown, getting a little too aggressive early, throwing a couple picks, and next thing you know, you're in trouble. And everything that you built up towards, all the positive momentum that was created throughout the offseason with the additions of Eric Singleton, 2 offensive linemen, defensive linemen, all the additions that you made is all for naught in the event in which you go out and drop the ball. I'm going to give you another game that's scary. This one might not jump off the page to you. Alabama at Florida State is a scary game. Now, do I think Alabama's a better team than Florida State? Yeah, I do. I think Alabama has far more known commodities than Florida State does. Right now, Florida State is a huge question mark. Huge. The pieces they have, there's a lot of things we don't know. A lot of new faces. But you don't think Mike Norvell understands the opportunity that's sitting in front of him off of 2-10? You don't think he understands the team that beat them en route to the playoffs, even though they didn't play 2 years ago? You don't think exacting revenge on a team that kept them out isn't something the fan base is just salivating for? I can tell you this, on my podcast, I got a bunch of one-star reviews from Florida State fans, hundreds of one-star reviews from Florida State fans because I went to Alabama.
How dare you?
You don't think the fan base is juiced about this? Juiced about this possibility. Of course they are. And one other side note, for as much smack as he's talked this offseason, Thomas Castellanos, and as reckless as he is with the football from time to time and as carefree he can be sometimes in the run game, he's got Gus Malzahn as his offensive coordinator. So there will be a certain level of ghost chasing for Alabama's defensive staff going into this game. I think Alabama's defense can be great. Really, really excited about it. I can't wait to watch them play. I think they're going to be so much more comfortable in year 2 in Kane Wommack's system. I'm really pumped about the growth that side of the ball might have. I think they could be really, really good. But I also know this. I know that Thomas Castellanos 2 years ago against a really, really good Florida State defense that featured Jared Verse and Patrick Payton en route to a 13-0 national championship, contending run. He tore him up and had over 100 yards rushing on third down by itself. And him with Gus Malzahn in an offense that's going to feature quarterback run and quarterback scramble and random stuff like that, that's going to be kind of tricky. Here's the good news. Alabama, I would anticipate playing a little more zone defense this year, playing zone defense a little better this year. Zone defense is much better against quarterback run. So that's great. That's really helpful, but it's also week 1. So that to me is kind of a scary game. Now, do I think Alabama will win it? Yeah. Do I think Tennessee will beat Syracuse? Yeah, I do. But is it one that has my full attention? If I'm a fan of Bama, if I'm a fan of Tennessee, absolutely it should. And no one's really talking about that Florida State game. And understandably, there's bigger fish to fry, like a road trip to Georgia, like a road trip to Auburn, like a home tilt against Tennessee, like a home game against LSU. Like there are bigger fish to fry. There will be better teams that Alabama will have to tee it up against. But in my opinion, getting off to a really good start this year, for all the same reasons why it's important for Hugh Freeze, getting off to a good start to show progress, to show improvements, it's a real thing. So I just want to put that on everyone's radar. Like, this is not a game that you can take lightly, and I don't think there's a lot of people that will. Enough of us grew up in the era in which felt like every single year Florida State was going to be a top 5 program. They're not what they once were, but it doesn't mean they're not dangerous. It doesn't mean they won't be improved, because I think they will be. I'd actually be highly surprised if they're not drastically improved. I would not be surprised at all if they win 5 or 6 more games this year than they did last year. Granted, they went 2-10. So going from 2-10 to 7-5 or 8-4 is not unthinkable. But their record probably last year does not reflect how good they were from a talent standpoint. The record the year before that probably doesn't reflect how good they were from a talent standpoint either. But that's a game that I think Bama's got to be buttoned up, because that will be a crazy hostile environment, and you're going to have to be ready to roll. There's one more game in week 1 that scares me for a team in the SEC that has high hopes. And I will tell you what it is next on Jox. Bill Smith Buick GMC is the GMC Dealer of the Year, the national champion of GMC dealers. They're the very best. 5 years in a row, they've won the national championship. They actually just worked on my car. It's the service, it's the sales, it's the unbelievable deals that can't be beat. And it's also just the professionalism that you get every single time you shop with Bill Smith. I'm a repeat customer. I know you will be too. 75% of their business is repeat customers. That's because you have a better experience when you shop with Bill Smith Buick GMC. So take the short drive up to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. You can do GMC Sierra 1500 SLT 4x4 X31 loaded. Just a beautiful loaded vehicle for $53,000. That's $14,000 off the sticker price. So go and see Andy Cole. Go and see Jonathan Yeager. You'll understand what I'm talking about the second you walk in the door at Bill Smith Buick GMC. You can also shop online at BillSmithBuickGMC.com. All right, there is one other game, and I want to get y'all's reaction so far to week one. I think the Virginia Tech South Carolina game is also of concern. Not saying that South Carolina can't win it. Not saying South Carolina won't win it. Just saying that game, as far as optics are concerned, is significant. So if you're an SEC team and you want to get 5 in, if you're Greg Sankey, you want to get 5 teams in the playoffs, South Carolina could be one of those teams. A loss to a Virginia Tech team whose coach is kind of on the hot seat, needs to win this year, needs to make a move, and returns a lot of skill offensively. Lost a bunch of guys on defense, but Virginia Tech's dangerous. Their quarterback, Kyron Drones, a handful. Mm-hmm. South Carolina's got a bunch of new pieces breaking in on defense. If Kyron Drones goes off, that could be a problem in a hurry. And that impacts whether you are a South Carolina fan or not. That impacts how the league is perceived. If South Carolina were to go, 8-4, 9-3, fine. But if Virginia Tech goes 6-6 and they beat an SEC team, that could hurt the overall perception of the league. So 4 week one games that scare me to death. Damian, we haven't heard from you. Of those 4, which one scares you the most?
Tennessee, Syracuse. I think for Tennessee, because of everything that you lost last season and kind of, the product of what you had last season is making to the college football playoff, to start off the season potentially 0-1 with everything else that you got to look forward to as far as the SEC schedule is concerned. If you don't come out the gate swinging against a pretty good Syracuse team, I mean, it could be tough sledding moving forward through that schedule.
John, which game do you think is most concerning?
To me, it was that South Carolina game, because that feels eerily similar to what Florida State and Georgia Tech was last year. You got a team, okay, maybe South Carolina's not projected to be as high as Florida State was last year, but you got a team that everyone's really, really high on, can make some noise, and the other team that no one's really, okay, fine, maybe they'll have a good year, whatever, not thinking anything much of. And if Virginia Tech can get that game and all of a sudden throw some massive doubt towards South Carolina, that can probably already derail a season just after 1 week. So, yeah, it's absolutely South Carolina, Virginia Tech.
So I can't talk you into Florida State, Bama. Can't talk you into Tennessee, Syracuse.
Maybe Tennessee, Syracuse, but also I don't know what Tennessee's going to be with the tumultuous year that if they lose this game, I mean, I kind of figure that. And Alabama probably not, because if they lose this one, it'll be good for us, because we're going to be right here to have everyone.
Not good for all of us. Good for y'all.
Well, maybe, but there's enough on that schedule still remaining to be like, okay, you lost to Florida State, but you beat Georgia and LSU and Oklahoma. Okay, fine. We forgave Notre Dame last year for their dumb loss, and even if Florida State is the same 2-10, we're going to forgive that. But it's the only one maybe might be Auburn. I think you could talk me into that one.
And sidebar, how do you feel about Florida State going into the fall?
I think they're going to be a lot better. I do. I think they're going to be a lot better. I think they got questions on defense.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have questions along the D-line. I don't think the O-line is going to be good. They should be better than they were last year. They were just terrible last year. I don't really know what else to describe. But their quarterback this year with Castellanos is going to make them better. Like, he's going to make them – there will be some schoolyard elements to their game that you just can't really prepare for. Like that, and I love watching offense like that.
Yeah.
It's stressful to defend, but certainly one that is difficult to kind of corral. So I think Florida State's dangerous for sure. All right, Taylor Zarzer and Scotty Scheffler next on Mac and Cube. Hour number 2 here on Jox, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 8 o'clock here Central Time. And we're kind of entering the point now in the golf conversation. And we seldom talk about golf. I mean, it's not one that we spend a ton of time on, but around the majors, feel like it's absolutely worth it. With Scotty Scheffler yesterday winning his 4th major, his 2nd major of the year, and just a complete dominant performance in every possible way. I mean, just taking control on Saturday, absolutely running away with it. And then with the having a double yesterday on Sunday and still with plenty of room to spare. There was never a point in which you felt like anyone else had a chance. And that's not something we're used to. Not at least in the last, 25 years. What we're seeing right now, guys, is historic. We'll have Taylor Zarzer here in a moment to help us make sense of it. If you need to make some sense of some of the adjustments that you're making to your floors, you need to go with my friends at Shannara Flooring. Right now is a great time to take advantage of the 40,000 square feet of CoreTech flooring that they have in stock. This CoreTech flooring by Shaw is waterproof, pet-proof, adds value to your home or business. And because they have so much in stock, they have so much inventory, they're going to actually give you a tremendous deal of $10 off per box when you order it from Shannara Flooring. So highly recommend you take advantage of that. They also have several other options. If you don't want to go with the CoreTech flooring, it's not a problem. You can go with any of the floors that they have available in their inventory. So go and check them out. It's Shannara Flooring by going online at fooandyou.com. All right, he's in now. It's Taylor Zarzer of the SEC Network. You hear him calling games all throughout the fall. He's also the voice of the Titans, which is amazing. We're so proud of him for that. But he also does a tremendous job on PGA Tour Radio, SiriusXM Channel 92. I am a loyal listener, especially around the majors season. And he is also my member guest partner at the lake, to which we might have lost in a chip off, but I'm not acknowledging it because if it was off Bluestone. He's Taylor Zarzer, ladies and gentlemen. Taylor, what's going on, my friend?
Blight winners and would have been champions if we had a proper shootout. But I'm in the Tennessee Titans facility right now, Greg, and I'm trying to open this door that's locked to go outside so you don't hear any TVs in the background. But it is my first day, so I don't really know how to use doors or know where I'm going. I'm a little lost in this facility, but I do see the practice facility outside. I see Cam Ward out there already, who I don't think has left here in the last 3 months. The bubble right outside, the indoor facility. Let's go, man. I mean, let's play some ball. It's 300 degrees in Nashville right now. It's time for training camp.
300 degrees, that feels like kind of a cool day in Birmingham, at least after the last few. So certainly I'm excited about that. We will ask you a little bit about the Titans, but I first want to ask you a little bit about Scotty Scheffler. You cover golf. You have been covering golf for years and years and years. And we don't talk a ton of golf here unless it's Tiger and/or unless it's leading into the majors and/or there's something remarkable that's happening. And I don't remember a time in my life, Taylor, even more so than Tiger, because Tiger had these remarkable moments chipping in off the side of the green, making a 60-foot putt to send it to extra holes. But Tiger also, what people don't remember, was a little leaky with the driver from time to time. Tiger, the greatest iron player of all time. But it's not like his game was completely flawless. He was just more mentally tough than everybody in the field and was a killer like we wouldn't believe. Scotty doesn't feel like there's ever a moment in which he is not in complete and utter control. Help us understand what we're witnessing.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it. I mean, you've got Tiger is the most talented golfer that's ever lived. And I don't even think that that's up for conversation. Jack Nicklaus would tell you that. I mean, he possesses the most ability of anybody that's ever played the game, but he also would, as you said, he would hit it offline off the tee. He hit it offline into the green. There was so much more drama around his game. These remarkable recovery shots that utilize so much athleticism, and then the putts that he would make outside 30 feet and the fist pumps and all of that drama and the noise that came with Tiger was very different than what we're witnessing right now. What we're witnessing right now is a man that hits the appropriate tee shot. He hits the perfect approach shot that is always hole high. It's on the correct side of the green. He never leaves himself in a bad spot. And then when he does putt well, which he doesn't always putt well, but when he does putt well, I mean, you basically can say, okay, the tournament's over. And once you saw that on Thursday and Friday, the tournament was over. I mean, we knew he was going to win the Open. If there are elements, if you get crazy bounces over there, then it could be a different story. But at Portrush, they didn't have a lot of wind, a lot of rain, which you typically get at a British Open. It was, as they say, it was a bluebird day over there, and it was the perfect weather. And when you give the best player in the world perfect weather and pretty good putting, it's going to be game over. But I think that, a lot of people that are listening to us right now don't get as excited about Scotty because there isn't as lot of drama. There isn't as much drama with him as there is with other great players. But I sure do admire him, Greg. I mean, I admire the man that he is, the faith that he has, and I wish once in my life I could play with the kind of confidence and repetition that he does. It really is remarkable.
It's insane. And look, I know, look, you're one swing away from your career being over. Like, look at Francesco Molinari, who in preparation for our own tournament together, we saw him hit 2 in the drink and on 12 at Augusta. And all of a sudden he's not the same guy the rest of his life. I feel like because of how Scotty's wired, he's just not a guy that's going to get too high with the highs and low with the lows. He's not an emotional player, and he also is probably not going to be as subjected to injury as Tiger was, because Tiger was constantly trying to prove to himself and to others that he was more than just a golfer. He wanted a Marine type mentality and would be doing things that were reckless, frankly, to his body. So I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to win 18 majors or anything like that. Let's not get carried away. But this feels more sustainable than anything we've seen from Tiger before him or anybody in our generation. Is that fair?
It is, yeah, because he keeps doing the right thing every single week. And this is 4 consecutive years where he's been the best player in the world by a mile, and he continues to win at such a prolific rate. And he's always in the top 10. He's always giving himself a chance. Yeah, it does. It feels like it is more repeatable now, as Meredith and him have more kids, and, if he does have some sort of injury as he gets into his 30s and he gets more aches and pains, I mean, who knows what the future is going to hold, and who knows how motivated he will be to dominate the game. And there are a number of great athletes that aren't as motivated someday as they were, when they were 29 years old. I don't think that this is going to change for quite some time. I think Scotty Scheffler is going to dominate the game for years to come, but you're right. I mean, he has the most repeatable swing in the game. It's unique. It's a strange finish. There's a lot of movement with his feet. It is his own golf swing, but he knows how to repeat it. And that's the thing. Like, I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care what kind of athlete you are or what business that you're in. Your mind wanders from the present all the time. The hardest thing I think to do as a human is to be present, is to be totally focused on what's in front of you, and to do it all day long, and to do it the next day all day long. That's the thing that I marvel at with this guy, is that the only thing he's thinking about is hitting the next shot. It really does in many ways remind me of Nick Saban. And I know that you're not talking at all about him, Greg, or talking about his future or making any viral moments these days, talking about Nick Saban. But it does remind me of him a lot. Nick Saban is obsessed with the next thing that's in front of him. That's what made him so successful, is he only wanted to talk about the next play and dominating the next moment. And Scotty, I've never seen an athlete like this, where he only is thinking about, I want to think about the first tee shot, and then I'll think about the approach shot. He's not thinking about winning or long-term goals or what next year is going to look like. I think that's the secret to all of his success.
I mean, it feels like it's an inevitability that he'll win the career Grand Slam. It feels like it's an inevitability that he's going to win several more majors, probably win another FedEx, should have, if he wins this one, which feels likely, He will have won 2 in a row, but he probably should have won 3 because he had no business losing to Rory 2 years ago. It's kind of crazy when you think about that. Not that anybody cares about the playoffs. But those are big checks he's cashing on an annual basis. I mean, like you said, I know it's impossible, but are we talking about a guy that wins double-digit majors here? I mean, are we talking about a guy that could flirt with Tiger's 15 or with Jack's 18?
I think certainly it's possible. The only reason I would hesitate is because he's an average, at best, he's an average putter. And when you give him a week like he had this week, he's going to win the tournament. The tournament's over. When you give him a week like he had the week before, the Scottish Open, where he was dead last of all the people that made the cut, he's going to finish in the top 10, which is incredible because, it just goes to show how good the ball striking is that he can be putt that poorly and still finish in the top 10. So, I do think that the putting is going to be the big question for Scotty moving forward. Does he have a good putting week or not? And if he doesn't, then I think Bryson DeChambeau, Xander Schauffele, Rory McIlroy, and some young players that are probably still in college right now are going to have something to say about that in the next 5 to 10 years. But he's going to get himself a chance. As long as Scotty Scheffler wants to be the best player in the world, he will be.
Zern doesn't feel like that's going to slow down anytime soon. Visiting with Taylor Zarzer, voice of the Titans, and does a great job on SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio Channel 92 and also on the SEC Network. Taylor, finally, Rory McIlroy had a really nice week. Does feel like his best is on par with Scotty. What's the difference between the two? Why is it that Rory right now can't quite catch him unless Scotty's just a little bit off?
Rory does think about the big picture. He does think, he is emotional. He does consider what all of this means. He doesn't, his brain is busy. He has a very active mind. He's somebody that's reading constantly and watching things constantly. He's got a busier mind in a lot of ways, and it's a lot of wonderful ways too, which makes him so much fun to talk to through the years. But, I think the last round of the Masters is a microcosm of Rory McIlroy's career. A lot of us that are amateur golfers struggle with this and how vulnerable you are on the course. You're always thinking about what could go wrong. And Rory had some viral moments in the last round of the Masters where things could go wrong. But the difference between Rory and Scotty on the good side for Rory is Rory has more talent. Rory hits it further than Scotty, hits it further than anybody, hits it higher than Scotty does. He's just a little bit better athlete than Scotty is, and can hit shots that Scotty can't. Scotty can't hit the shot that Rory hit into the 15th green at Augusta National.
Yeah.
So I think that Rory's talent is superior to everybody's right now in the game. But his brain, just like everybody else's brain in the game, gets in the way sometimes. And again, that's the biggest quality that Scotty has, is his brain never gets in the way. And that's why Scotty, Jordan Spieth, Xander Schauffele, everyone else is frustrated with the fact that they're not as good as Scotty is. That's a really hard thing to accept, no matter what you do for a living. It's really hard to accept that there is someone better than you that's out there. And that's the hard thing for Rory and everyone else right now.
Well, I was told, based on a commercial, the reason why Rory made that shot on 15 is because he switched to a tailor-made golf ball from the TP5 to the TP5X. Whether that's true.
Are you doing another read here on Jox right
now?
No,
I'm not a tailor-made guy. I'm just I was told that that was the only reason why that shot existed, not because he's athletic or talented or gifted, but because he changed golf balls. I mean, that's all it was. It's amazing how that's
that's it.
Yeah, I'm really buying that one.
The swing or the ability. Yeah.
Give me that ball. Let's see if I can pull that shot off. I don't think it's likely. We'll see where it goes.
I don't know, man. I saw some shots at Lake Martin that were pretty impressive.
Yeah, with a Titleist, I might add. A Titleist golf ball. Yeah, a Left Dash Pro V1 X.
Man.
Let's
go, Titleist. Send McElroy a shipment.
I'm just big a Cushnet guy. That's it for sure. With friction irons. All right, moving on to some Titans. We do have one resident Titan fan in the building. I'm a fan because of you. The second you take a job at another place, I will abandon fandom. But while you're there, I am 100% all in. Cam Ward now comes over and and is the first overall pick. And you guys report tomorrow. Officially, the rookies have been there for a few days now. I mean, what is reasonable here in year number one? Like, how is the staff feeling about what this young quarterback might mean?
He's already the leader of the team, Greg. I mean, he very immediately became the leader of the team. You did some of his games last year, and you saw this. I mean, the guy immediately became the leader of the Hurricanes from the jump. I mean, the guy didn't know anybody at the University of Miami from coming over at Washington State, and he absolutely was the entire team. And he was that way at Washington State, and he's that way with the Titans already. He is a born leader. He is a worker. He never leaves the facility. He just absolutely has this crazy passion for football and getting better. He is doing what the coaches are telling him to, but then he has his own program on top of whatever is required of him by the coaches. He just cannot get enough. He went down to Miami for a few weeks and brought a lot of Titans with him down there to practice, and then he's come back here and he's done the same thing before camp has started. And so I do think that there's a lot of enthusiasm because the Titans believe that they got the right guy with the number one pick, and they believe they found their quarterback for the future. Because of that, I think, as you know, if you've got a quarterback in the NFL, more than ever, or right now in this era, if you've got that position right, you can mask some other deficiencies and you can immediately become a contender. The Houston Texans were the Tennessee Titans 2 years ago, and they got the right guy at quarterback and immediately went to the top of the division and won the division and went to the playoffs. I'm not saying that the Titans are going to do that. They didn't get Will Anderson also in the draft the Titans still need some improvement with pass rushing. Defense, I think, is the big question going into the season. But because of Cam Ward, because of some of the pieces they got around him, I think that there is going to be significant improvement. They'll be far removed from being the worst team in the NFL in a 3-14 record. I think this will be a competitive team. I'm not going to put an amount of wins on it, but I think you'll see a significantly improved team in year number one. And I am over the moon to be here. And this is where I'm going to be until they tell me to leave, which hopefully is when I'm 80. So this is where you're going to find me. And look, I think as the Titans find more success, Nashville's going to go crazy for this team. But I think even communities like Birmingham are going to go crazy for this team. If they put a winner on the field and become a perennial winner and become a contender at the top of the NFL, I think there's going to be a lot of enthusiasm in a 3-4 hour radius of Nashville. So it's an exciting time for the Titans.
Yeah, I would imagine it is. And we'll get you out here with this. Kind of looking at the Titans overall. I mean, you have Jeffrey Simmons is fantastic. Tavondre Sweat had a nice rookie year. You do lose Harold Landry. There are a couple. You lose Kenneth Murray. So you lose a couple guys on defense that had some nice moments. Obviously, we're all very excited about what Cam Ward's doing. I think you have one of the better guards in the league, and Peter Skoronski. Like, there's a lot to like. But just defensively, do they have enough? Are you feeling pretty good about what they have on that side of the ball to be competitive in the AFC South?
I don't know that they have it yet, Greg, and maybe in the next few weeks they'll add to it, and everyone will feel better about that. But this is what gives me a lot of confidence, is their general manager is Mike Borgonzi. He was the assistant general manager for the Kansas City Chiefs for decades, and he had everything to do with turning the Chiefs into the premier organization in the National Football League, winning 3 Super Bowls and playing for 5 of them in the last 6 years. He had everything to do with that. And he would tell you, and anyone near him would tell you, that the way they did that was building an organization through the draft and developing those players through the draft and turning it into the best organization in the NFL. And he has been given full access to do that with the Titans. That's what he's going to do, is he is going to build a team and it may take a year, 2, 3 years in order to turn that defense and the offense into a championship level team. But when you give, and you know this better than anybody because of all the work you've done in the NFL and in college, when you give a qualified general manager access to building a team through the draft, and you don't skip any steps, and you're not panicked and pressured to win immediately, you want to go through the process correctly, it can happen in a year or two. It can happen in a hurry, and you very quickly can become a championship level team. So I'll answer your question about defense by saying they're not there yet, but I believe Mike Borgonzi will get them there. It'll take a year or two before they are finished product on that side of the football, but I believe given his process and how well it works, it'll work really well here in Nashville.
Well, if it's anything like Kansas City's, they got the right man for the job, and here's hoping it materializes the same way it did for the Chiefs. Taylor, great job, man. Always enjoy visiting with you, bud. Miss you, proud of you, and keep us posted on how things look at training camp this week.
You got it, my friend. G, I'm proud of you too, man. Let's find another tournament to win together.
That's a lock. Just take your pick. We'll put a tee in the ground and go post a dub. Sounds good, buddy. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, Taylor Zarzer joining us here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Always great to visit with him. Good to get his perspective on what Scotty Scheffler's doing, and then dive into the NFL for a couple minutes as teams are reporting all over the place. It's kind of wild. Just how many teams are going now, man. I remember we reported my second year on the 21st, but the rookies came in on the 21st. The quarterbacks came in with the rookies, and the rest of the team joined 3 or 4 days later. But it's kind of crazy now to see how early these training camps have begun and how long training camp is. I mean, they don't play, remember, until week 2 of the college football season. Week 2 of the college football season is 50 some odd days away. And there are teams in the NFL on the field practicing right now, trying to put together their roster. It's pretty crazy when you think about it, but it sure is a lot of fun, man. Football is in the air. College football teams will be taking the field here in the next 8 to 10 days. So it is upon us. And there's an awful lot to look forward to. All right, when we come back, we will continue on with our conversation of the most scary games on the schedule. We gave you a few from week 1. Now let's finish out the month of September. Games that should scare you if you are a fan of these SEC teams. We'll tell you next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning on Jox. Putting a bow on some of the Scotty Scheffler stuff. Just so we're all kind of on the same page. And I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend that he's Tiger 2.0. I'm not. But there are some really interesting parallels. Okay? Scotty Scheffler yesterday won his fourth major. That is 1,197 days after he won his first major. 1197, just to clarify. Distance between majors 1 through 4 for Tiger Woods, 1197. The exact same amount of time. Scheffler is only the fourth player to win the Open Championship, the PGA, and the Masters before the age of 30. The only other three players that have won that are Tiger Woods, Gary Player, and Jack Nicklaus. Next year, he can win his career Grand Slam at the U.S. Open. The final round will coincidentally fall on his 30th birthday. So he, in theory, has 8 to 10 good years of prime golf left, which means he's going to have about 32 major appearances, barring setbacks. He's won 4 of the last 15 major starts. If he keeps that pace, he has 12 majors by the time he's 38. That would put him third all-time behind Woods at 15, Nicklaus at 18. It's obviously not impossible to think that is real. Scotty Scheffler has won 10 straight tournaments in which he's had the 54-hole lead. Tiger Woods has the longest streak ever of 36, which is insane. But it does feel like there's a certain level of inevitability. And take it from a guy that is as knowledgeable as any. Jim Bones Mackay, who was on the bag for Phil Mickelson during some of the greatest moments in golf history in the last 25 years. Now he's working for NBC, and he said, quote, "I've never thought I'd see a player as close to Tiger as this man currently is." Pretty cool. That's from guys that are watching it right there, and guys that are all over it. And like I said, we don't cover golf, don't intend to start, but still pretty impressive to see what we're seeing right now from Scotty Scheffler. 205-834-9450. The theme of the day has been fear, concerns, panic, whatever word you want to incite worry, because we are going through the schedule throughout the course of today, and we are finding games that should scare you. And I'm not saying you're going to lose them. I'm not saying they're going to even be competitive. You go out and take care of business. All is well in the world. Maybe you don't feel any concern whatsoever. But we documented 4 games in week 1 that should concern the fan base that is favored in that game. One is Auburn-Baylor. I don't think we need to go too deep into that. We've explained that 100 times on this show. One is Syracuse-Tennessee. I think that game is of concern as well for the Tennessee Volunteers. Syracuse, totally different roster. They totally flipped the roster at Syracuse, and they might be pretty good, just like they were last year when they won 10 games. I think Bama-Florida State's a concerning game. Florida State's got a bunch of new faces. Florida State's got a lot of energy built up in that stadium. Guess what? Tickets right now are $350 in Doak Campbell Stadium for that game. You don't think their fan base fired up about getting some revenge for being left out of the playoff a couple years ago? Bama's got to be ready to roll in that game. They absolutely do. And I think they will be, but they need to play well. And if they don't, then that game could get uncomfortable real soon. And then Virginia Tech, South Carolina. South Carolina's team that's probably going to come into the season top 15. And even though there's probably not a ton of South Carolina fans listening to the show, maybe there are, maybe there aren't. Virginia Tech, I think, is dangerous. And that game's more impactful, not just for South Carolina's long-term prospects, but if you're measuring, say, a second ACC team to get into the college football playoff, like last year. Remember when SMU and Clemson both made it and everyone said, well, the ACC should get one? Fine. You better win your games in the non-conference against the ACC if you're an SEC team. So that game, even if you're not a South Carolina fan, you need to be rooting hard for South Carolina in that game so that when we get to selection day, we won't possibly be entertaining a conversation between a second ACC team and a, say, fourth SEC team. Very real thing. Let's go to week 2. There's not as much week 2. If I'm going to be completely honest, I only found 2. If you guys can find another one, Cole will tell you all day long that if you're Florida, you need to be scared of South Florida. I respectfully disagree. I think that's going to be a bloodbath because I think Florida is going to be an absolute bully on the block.
Yeah.
South Florida don't want that smoke. All right. They're fast and athletic, and they're going to have some speed. I don't think that game's competitive.
You just made Drake and Hoover feel good because he texted in, guys, the South Florida game scares me for my Gators.
No, don't be worried about it. Cole's just trying to Cole is just 100% probably doing that game, and he's just trying to get everyone jacked up about it. Like I love Cole. Little shameless promotion there, though. Let's just call it what it is. Like, what are the odds Cole's doing that game? It is 3:15 on SEC Network. The prime game, no, he might be at Bama. Louisiana Monroe at Bama. He might be there. He might be there, but I think South Florida, if they put him there, it wouldn't shock me. So I don't see it.
Yeah. South Florida's not ready for the fist fight.
They ain't ready for that.
They're not ready for it.
The 2 games that I think need to be concerning in week 2, Ole Miss at Kentucky. I don't need to tell people this. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky last year. Now they go to Kentucky. Ole Miss still has a new quarterback. Still kind of a hostile place to play. I know that game's at 3:30 Eastern, so it's not as bad as if it were night. But that's not going to be an easy game for Ole Miss, especially if Kentucky is the bare knuckle brawler that they keep talking about them being. So you guys see that one as a problem?
Yeah.
It absolutely is. Since Lane has been there, the point differential in that series is 1 point in favor of Ole Miss.
The point differential in that game
Yeah.
is 1 point. Love
1
that.
point.
Of the series, not one getting the whole series, all
whole
3
series.
games. Yeah, is 1 point.
You don't need
Yeah.
to convince me. You got my attention with that
Oh,
game.
yeah.
I called it last year. It was like, how the heck is Kentucky winning this game? Like, I remember sitting there thinking to myself, like, this is not possible. This is not real. How is Kentucky going to pull this upset? And they did. Sure enough, they did. A lot of credit to them for that. The other one is Kansas, Missouri. I think Kansas is really dangerous. I don't know how good they're going to be. Last year, if you look at their schedule, they lost 5 games by 7 points or less. And that has a tendency of correcting itself the following year. They lost all 5. It was almost like the most snake bit season ever.
Yeah.
When you watch them, it was so unlucky. Like bad, like turnovers. They're about to score a touchdown, they'd fumble, and like that would have won the game. Like stuff like that, kind of fluky stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of thinking that Kansas is going to be a problem this year in the Big 12. And like we said, a little bit like the Virginia Tech South Carolina game, a little bit like the Syracuse Tennessee game, a little bit like the Baylor Auburn game. The SEC, if they want to be given the benefit of the doubt at season's end to get more teams in the playoff, they need to win their non-conference games against Big 12 and ACC competition. The Big 10's going to be given the benefit of the doubt, but against the ACC and the Big 12, you have to win those games or else it can alter perception.
And a lot of it has to do with where is Missouri going into the fall? Because, you know, replacing Brady Cook, replacing all those weapons at receiver, you know, they've gone back-to-back 10-win seasons. Is it one of these things? Because Coach Drinkwitz, he was composed. He had a great time at SEC Media Days. But, like, I don't know what to really think of Missouri heading into the fall.
Yeah, I mean, I think Missouri's going to be pretty good. I think a lot of the reason why people feel like Missouri is like a real contender is because their schedule is, quote, manageable. Who can really blame them for that? But I'm pretty optimistic that Missouri is going to be decent. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to go as far as to say that they're going to be elite, but I think they have a chance to be very, very decent. I don't see them as like a legitimate championship contender in the SEC. I just don't.
But they can flirt for a playoff spot.
I think they can get in the playoff if their record's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that could definitely happen. I don't like necessarily handing out playoff spots, but if they're sitting there 9-3, 10-2, with a win over, let's just say Bama at home, that's going to go a long way, you know, or a win over A&M, who's also in the same mix, or I don't even know who else they play.
Oklahoma would be the
Tennessee.
other.
I think they play
Yeah.
Oklahoma. Yeah, I mean, some of those teams that are also kind of like mind, if they can get one of those, it shouldn't be a huge surprise. So we'll see exactly kind of how that all unfolds. But I'm pretty optimistic about Missouri, but I'll be the first to admit there are some serious unknowns. All right, we'll go next to week 3 here in just a moment. We'll do so after the break right here on Jox. Jox 94.5, Jox in Mobile, Jox in Montgomery, in Huntsville, all over the place. Appreciate you guys being back with us. It's McElroy and Cubelic on a Monday, July 21st. So much action going on right now, and we continue to move all the way through the schedule, kind of talking about the games that should scare you to death. And we've already given you a handful. It doesn't matter what team you're a fan of. We're probably going to be able to hit some of them. We're keeping it in the SEC. We're not going to the ACC, into the Big 12, and the Big 10. We're just doing SEC, but we've gone week by week. We've done week 2. We've done week 1. Now we're going to do week 3 in just a moment. Before we move on to that, I'll tell you, if you're moving from one place to the other, it's Crocker Movers. That's a group you need to trust. They're a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys, and you can trust them in your home. And it's your whole home packed up move. Your company headquarters moved across country, or you just want them to come rearrange your living room. These guys got you covered. They also deliveries for furniture that you purchased and need to get to your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website's CrockerMovingServices.com. That's CrockerMovingServices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move. All right, week 3. Week 3 is actually really good. I don't know how many people have been paying attention to it or have been thinking about it. Of course, we take it one day at a time. But we're kind of just going through, by the way, the non-conference for the most part, and then we can go team by team here to kind of finish up the hour. But week 3 is very, very intriguing. I can tell you one game right now that kind of jumps out to me. Do I think Wisconsin is concerning? Not necessarily for Alabama. I think that this game last year was a little more concerning because Bama at that time had a young secondary. Wisconsin had Tyler Van Dyke. They were going to try to throw it all over the yard. First really difficult road game. Like I thought last year's game was a lot more tricky than this year's road game is likely going to be. This game, of course, will be at home, so it's not even on the road. But that's one right there where it doesn't really move the needle for me. Either one of y'all concerned about Wisconsin for Bama this year?
Nah. It'd have to be kind of like that South Florida game a couple of years ago where Alabama has to like make mistakes before I believe Wisconsin's going to come into Bryant Denny and make it a game.
In theory, no, but as someone that gambles and looks at lines, this is one of the ones that when the public's all on one something and you're starting to think, and you're like, oh, wait, hold on, maybe it needs to take a step back. And in theory, probably not no, but because everyone's just completely glossing over it, there's a little voice in the back of my head that's like, well, hold on now. Like, that would probably, like, if Wisconsin is better than we expected, I mean, I don't really quite know much that they would have. In Alabama, we kind of would know after a test and a lesser opponent after La Monroe. I mean, they should be starting to heading towards hitting their stride. So they really shouldn't, but there's a part of me that's like, well, hold on now. Just temper it. Just take a step back. Make sure, respect every opponent. Which I think they will, but also, Vandy. And maybe that's also why, because last year, like, the unthinkable happened. And so now it's like, well, there's no way they can lose this thing. Well, actually, yeah, they can. We saw it last year. Like, it can happen.
Fair enough. I mean, I think Bama is going to be much more well equipped to handle it this year if Wisconsin returns to ground and pound, which is what they're going to do with Jeff Grimes being back as the offensive coordinator and them just kind of pounding the ball. I think everything's going to be just fine. That game does not scare me to death. Now we'll go team by team. So we kind of went through the non-conference a little bit. Told you some non-conference games that scare you to death. We'll start with Alabama. Just go in an alphabetical order. Which game, Damian, do you think is the most concerning on the entire schedule?
The entire schedule? I guess you have to give it to Georgia. Just because, I mean, the game's in Athens. I think psychologically it still kind of messes with Georgia that Alabama's across the other side. But this is the first time in a while that you get them in the comfort of your own home, not in Atlanta for the SEC championship. You get them in Athens, and it's a game that we hadn't seen in a long time. Now, granted, Alabama's had some success over there, but, Gunnar Stockton, he's finally, he's going to be let loose. We get a chance to see those receivers that they've gotten out of the transfer portal. And it's going to look different, but you also get them at home.
John?
I want to say Missouri, but I think it's South Carolina.
I think South Carolina is a tough one.
Because not only is it a team that I know would-haves and should-haves, but damn near had you beat last year at your place, and now you're getting them at home. But now you're getting them after a 5-game stretch, and 3 of which will be on the road. And so that one I know it's right before a bye week, and hopefully people aren't looking ahead to finally getting some time off. But after that now seemingly extremely tough gauntlet of at Georgia, Vandy, at Missouri, Tennessee, and then you get South Carolina with South Carolina revenge on their minds. And at that point in the season, I mean, South Carolina's going to have already had LSU and Oklahoma and Vanderbilt themselves. So we're going to know what South Carolina is. So, yeah, like that's the one that's really standing out to me.
I agree with you. That's the toughest one. And it's because after Tennessee and before the bye, those games that you get kind of right before the bye, it's like, oh, all right, one more, boys, and we get a break.
Just got to get through this.
One more and we get a break. Just get through this one and get a break. And I think South Carolina comes back just a little bit to earth, but they still have a remarkably dynamic quarterback at that point. Tennessee, I don't think, is going to provide the same challenge as last year's version of Tennessee. Doesn't mean they can't still make it tough. But I think that with where it's at right before the bye week makes that game remarkably difficult. All right, next we'll go to Arkansas. Not that there really is like a crazy dangerous game, but for me, Arkansas, the most tough game is at Memphis. Like that game to me is a beast. Like you're expected to win it. They're a G5 program, but Memphis has been a team that has actually been able to stockpile talent better than most G5 programs. So that to me is like majorly concerning. Is there an SEC game that scares me? Not really, because if I'm the Arkansas, I'm probably not going to be favored in very many of those games. I lose it. I was supposed to.
Yeah.
I win it. Oh my gosh, I'm the greatest thing ever. Kind of like the expectation when they beat Tennessee last year. Like to me, the Memphis game for Arkansas is by far the most concerning and the scariest one where not a whole lot can be gained in victory.
Mm-hmm.
Especially being on the road back-to-back weeks after having faced Ole Miss. That's
Totally
going to be
agree.
really, really tough. And the only one potentially, I mean, they should win the game, but also if it's a criteria, because if they lose this, watch out, Mississippi State. Like, they absolutely should win that game. But
You're right.
That's right after at Tennessee, A&M, Auburn, and then Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And Mississippi State comes in ready to play. And if Arkansas going into a bye the next week, like, it's just State, we got them. And they easily could FAFO and be like, how did this happen?
Yeah. And I think that the Memphis game, because it's so early too, like you said, it's for Arkansas. Like I go back to that Oklahoma State game and how devastating of a loss that was in the long run because of how bad Oklahoma State was.
Right.
When you had the game won early on, like you had your foot on their neck, and right when you were trying to close the door, you give Oklahoma State hope. It's avoiding those games for Arkansas, and that's how I feel about that Memphis matchup too. And you got to go up there.
Yeah, if you won't find any pushback from me at all there. Before we get to break, let's do Auburn real quick. We've already established Baylor as a crazy, scary game. We know that. That's understood, right? No pushing back there.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Same team.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll give you the next one. It's Vandy. At Vandy, this is a team that has had Hugh Freeze's number, frankly, the last couple of years. He lost to Diego Pavia when he was at New Mexico State. They lost to him last year. This now is the third time. He lost to Liberty to New Mexico State at Liberty. Like he's now seen Diego Pavia far too often over the last few years, uncomfortably so.
Yep.
Now you got to go and face him at their place late in the year. Could be cold, could be Miz, and you're fresh off what should be a pretty physical contest against Kentucky. I don't know how good Kentucky will be, but they'll be physical. You will have already played at Arkansas. You kind of feel like, all right, I'm at the part of my season after the tough stretch of at Oklahoma, at A&M, Georgia, Missouri. I'm at the easier part of my schedule where I'm at Arkansas, Kentucky at home, at Vandy. So you're kind of in exhale mode.
Mm-hmm.
That game to me is very dicey with where it's at on the schedule, knowing that you might have Vandy's best shot in them because Vandy's always a scary game nowadays, especially on the road. So that's probably the one right now in the conference schedule that would concern me the most.
I had the Oklahoma one only because it's the SEC opener, and it's a new look Oklahoma, and the fact that you lost to them last year on literally the last little bit. It's how can you rectify that when Oklahoma on paper is better than what they were last season, which arguably Auburn is too, and also Jackson Arnold coming back. It could get spooky down there.
To me, I have A&M. I absolutely understand the Oklahoma game, but A&M's the game after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by that point, Auburn should kind of know what they've got, especially that's why I'm not thinking Vanderbilt, because at that point in the season, you know what you got. Plus, Vanderbilt's coming off Texas. So, I mean, they very well could be beat up. But, I mean, that's the fifth game in a row for Auburn at that point, too. So they're going to be tired as well. But with the A&M game, after having Baylor and at Oklahoma, the second game back-to-back on the road, the 3rd and 5 already, they probably kind of know what they'll have at that point, and then they'll be tested at Oklahoma. Okay, now that you know what you have, can you replicate it? Can you do it 2 weeks in a row against a team that most likely should be better than Oklahoma? That's why I got the A&M game.
I think Oklahoma's tough. I think A&M's tough. I think the schedule's sneaky tough. I think A&M's going to be good. I'm more and more kind of the more I'm around that group, the more I talk to people that know that group well, I think A&M's going to be a huge problem for a lot of folks. All right, when we come back, take a quick break, continue on, do a few more schools in the SEC that should be very, very antennas up on some of these games. And we'll keep track of these too, by the way. We'll fast forward to season 10. We're like, all right, on July 21st, we told you this game is scary. And we'll look at what some of the outcomes were, because I would be willing to bet we're probably going to nail it pretty good. We'll see. We'll see. All right, when we come back, continue on with that discussion next on Mac and Cube in the morning. Continuing to roll along here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, just doing some scary games for teams in the SEC. And there are a bunch of them, man. As you kind of go through it, you go through the schedule, you look at some games, you look at some teams. We've already done Alabama. We concluded that that was going to be South Carolina. Damian says Georgia. We did Arkansas. I said it's Memphis. You guys are kind of on board with that. Mississippi State, I think, was one that also got mentioned. And then for Auburn, we've already established that Baylor's an extremely difficult one, but there's a few others on there as well. A&M is one. Vandy is one. So some scary pothole games on there for the Auburn Tigers as well. Moving on now to the Florida Gators. For me, it's at Kentucky in the end of the year.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't know how good Kentucky's going to be. I really don't. But I look at their schedule. All right, Long Island, South Florida, not concerned about. At LSU, at Miami, you're going to have to be up for those games.
Mm-hmm.
That's not – you lose those games, no surprise. Texas at home, all right, you got to be up for that one. At A&M, got to be up for that one. Mississippi State at home, I think they'll handle them. Georgia neutral site, every single one of these games you got to be up for.
Yeah.
At Kentucky, it's like, oh, finally we get a team that we're going to be favored by. On the road, and it's November, and it's cold. Now you're in a dogfight.
Yeah.
Is there another game that sticks out to you?
Until you said it out loud. I was leaning LSU, but I guess because you got them last year, you kind of go in that game confident. But also, if you're LSU, don't let that one slip. But I think for my fault.
I was thinking either Ole Miss or A&M, really.
But to your point about Kentucky, I look at that game being like Georgia and Kentucky battles, where it's Kentucky just ain't got the Jimmies and Joes to go to the fist fight with Florida right now.
Be curious to see Dan Wetzel coming back when we return. Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Hour number 3. Been a great first couple hours. We'll continue to roll through the games that scare you the most here for some of these teams throughout the SEC. We've only done 4, so we still have a lot more to do. Very much looking forward to getting into that conversation. Before we do, we can join Dan Wetzel is going to join us on the show, and really appreciate his perspective. He's got great feel for where things are right now as far as relationships between the SEC and the Big Ten and where we're going from a college football playoff standpoint. And he is now working at ESPN and has been doing a great job for a very, very long time at a bunch of different platforms. But we're happy to have him at the mothership now. So, Dan, we appreciate the time. Senior writer from ESPN. Dan, what's going on?
Thanks, Greg. Very nice. I mean, I would have joined sooner if I knew I was getting introductions like that. So great to be on board.
Well, I was pretty fired up. I'd seen this, like, I don't know, a couple months back. I don't recall exactly when it was. And it kind of like stored in my brain, like, heck yeah, we'll get Dan on. Like, looking forward to it. Like, now he's a teammate. Let's go. And it's right. Like one thing goes by another. It's like, oh, well, goodness gracious, we still haven't had Dan on. You know what I mean? So happy to have you with us today, and we appreciate the time. Looking at where we're at right now in Tony Petitti and the relationship between Tony Petitti at the Big Ten and Greg Sankey in the SEC, there seems to be a very public tug of war, and Tony Petitti will take to the mic tomorrow at Big Ten Media Days, and I'll be curious to see what the messaging sounds like. What do you anticipate him saying in regards to the relationship with the SEC and the other four Power 4 commissioners that are all seemingly in the camp of 5+11 as opposed to the automatic qualifier model?
Yeah, I'm really interested. One thing about Petitti is he is not as front facing. He doesn't do many interviews. He is not as public in what he wants to say as Sankey, Phillips, Yormark at the different leagues. I wish he did more. I think these commissioners, obviously they have big jobs and they have to represent their leagues, but they're running a business, but this is kind of a public trust sort of, if I'm using the term right. I mean, these decisions mean a great deal to all of us, not just as customers, but as, I mean, this is kind of a lot of people's life, right? And so when you're moving around a playoff or you're deciding how many games are getting played or NIL or anything, you're impacting not all of us just like, well, this is where I spend my money, but this is our passion. This is what we do. So all of us in college football, I prefer Tony Petitti talked more. So tomorrow out in Vegas, when they do the Big Ten Media Day, will be one of the rare times that he's going to step forward, and obviously he'll have prepared remarks. So what he says about where we are at in putting a playoff going forward, the Big Ten's plan to me is a significant change in the way the sport is competed at. When you can go into a league, the way he wants to set up these systems with 4 automatic bids and then have a conference play in, basically the 3rd seed play the 6th seed for one of those automatic bids. When you're entering a season and saying all I have to do is make it to 6th place in my conference, I have to maybe go 5-3 or 6-3. Like as long as I don't lose more than 3 conference games, I could be in the playoff basically. That's a dramatic change in the way we would walk into a sport. This sport has been competed for so long. And so I don't think that's ever really truly been addressed, and why he thinks that's a good idea, why that we should make that kind of a big jump. And so certainly he is at odds. Sankey has been very clear what he wants to talk about. Jim Phillips at the ACC will speak this week, but he's been very clear. He's basically on Sankey's side. Brett Yormark at the Big 12 is on Sankey's side. So it's what Petitti says will carry a lot of weight tomorrow, be very significant.
Well, if all the other Power 4 commissioners are on the side of Greg Sankey about the 5+11 model, and Greg Sankey says, well, fine, if we don't get what we want, we'll just keep it at 12. How can Petitti continue to dig in? Someone's going to have to explain that to me. How is that possible?
Well, I think Sankey put that down, and I think it's the right move, is you just say, well, until you convince us or you back down, we'll just stay at 12. And I wrote a column last week on ESPN. I like that. Whether you think this thing should expand or not, one of the things that I found really, concerning was we were talking about going to 16 before we had even held a 12-team playoff. Like the expansion of the playoff was talked about before we even did last season. I would like to see the 12-team cook for a few years. Let's see what's good, what's not, what needs improvement. Maybe it's perfect, maybe it's not perfect, but like, what's the rush to jump to 16 when we've now had one season? And you look at this one season, they've already changed the automatic bid. The conference champions getting the 3rd and 4th seed, right? Automatically. And I think that's a tweak that makes a lot of sense. It unbalanced the playoff and hurt teams, not just, who got to play 3 and 4, but like someone like a Tennessee maybe would have hosted a game or not had to play Ohio State the first. There's a lot of implications in that. Okay, great. Let's look at that. Didn't really work. It was clunky. No one really understood it. Let's tweak it. Why not see how the 12 team plays out 3, 4, 5 years? Maybe this committee's great. Maybe not, And so let's do that. And I would be in favor of Sankey pushing back, but I don't think Petitti's he can't really do much. He's either got to convince these other guys or he's got to back down right now. It's Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti. He's got to convince Greg Sankey to make this move, and he hasn't so far.
Well, I also think we visit with Dan Wetzel, ESPN senior writer. I do think that 16 is necessary, not because more is better. I could care less, frankly. I just don't want the teams with bye weeks to be at a disadvantage. And I felt like last year, albeit just one season, I do feel like there was a slight built-in disadvantage for teams that did not get that home playoff game, that did not get to knock the rust off. And as a result, they went 0-4. And not only did they go 0-4, but the way those teams started the first quarter for all 4 of those bye week teams were disastrous. You know what I mean? Like even Texas, who ultimately ended up, or even Arizona State, who ultimately ended up making that game super competitive, they were down 14-0 in like the blink of an eye. So that's my only problem, is that 16, I think, could allow for teams 1 through 4 to have a slight advantage because they won't necessarily be on a 28-day layoff. So if I were to advise, I like 5 + 11, but I would ultimately give those teams the home game against lesser competition so they can knock the rust off 2 weeks after they were selected.
And I am fine with that. I'm not opposed to 16 necessarily. I like 12, but again, that was a real world consequence, right? That we played out, and you say, hey, I don't know here. Now, was Arizona State and Boise State not competitive because they probably weren't the 3 and the 4 seeds? Let's see maybe we see under this model. I'm not going to, my thing is this. If they stay at 12, okay. Like everything in college football all of a sudden is on this massive rush to change.
Yeah.
It is just, okay, everything has happened. And they don't always think, it's funny, they think certain things through. They spend years in committees and having these meetings and these resorts in Florida and discussing, and then they'll like expand the Big 10 to 18 teams overnight and then go, well, we got too many teams here. And you're like, well, no kidding, you did. Why'd you just add 4? Why'd you do this like at the drop of a hat? So I'm just saying, let's let it play out and see. Now, if you go to 16, I think that's an extremely valid point. I think you are at a disadvantage. I thought Oregon was in a lot of trouble when Ohio State was able to get their feet under them and then walk in, and Oregon's been sitting around for a month. And you would know a lot better than me how hard that is. I mean, sport's always been weird that way, where it's like, congratulations, you've had a great season, you're in the championship game, wait a month, like where do we do this? So that would be it's a very viable thing and an argument, but that's why I prefer, if we're going to go to 16, and we're going to go to 16 at some point, clearly, I prefer the 5 and 11. I just think it's how sports has always been played. This 4 automatic bid thing, I don't agree with, and I just don't think Petitti has yet made a compelling case. Certainly not to the commissioners. I mean, Sankey says he talks to them virtually every day, or I think it was last week. He said we talked 4 of the last 5 days. He hasn't convinced. I'm sure there's other topics than just this, but he hasn't convinced the other commissioners, and I don't think he's convinced the public at large that this is a great idea. And so until he does, maybe he's going to come out with some, Winston Churchill level statesmanship tomorrow with this great speech or the Gettysburg Address and convince us all. But unless he can do that, we're kind of stuck here. So I'm very interested to see what he has to say.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating as Big 10 Media Days gets underway tomorrow. So does the ACC. ACC's on the East Coast. Big 10, I believe, is in Vegas. So Be interesting to kind of hear what Jim Phillips says, and then a few hours later, what the commissioner of the Big 10, Tony Petitti, says. And if you want to check out Dan's work, it's on ESPN.com right now. Has a really fascinating article about the playoff fix and the playoffs, and you have to go back and reference Gordon Gee. You also had, I think, one of the lines of the year: a once static sport now moves at light speed. It couldn't be more true, because we were unchanged for 100 years, and all of a sudden the BCS has changed the game, and we've now seen the playoff format change twice already in a 12-team period, as Dan Wetzel, ESPN senior writer, joins us here. Ultimately, when will these decisions be made? How much longer do we have to kind of twist in the wind before we have some confirmations about what this might look like in the future?
So the deadline is November 30th for the 2026 season. So this year is going to be 12 teams. It's going to be just like last year, except that automatic, the top 4 seed kind of tweak. And one other thing I would agree with, I think the top 4 seeds sat there and said, "Hey, we want a home game." Like that looks fun. We should have one of those. That's a big advantage for us. Like it'd be money. It's great for the town, all that. So I can see everybody wanting home games as part of this too, is what you're talking about. But we have until November 30th, supposedly, is the deadline. Who knows whether that's true or not? Deadlines often tend to be broken. But they could easily just kick the can and say, "Hey, we'll have a 12-team format in 2026. Buys us another year to come up with a new solution for 27 going forward." So there's sort of a deadline, but there's sort of not, because, again, I don't think like the world's not going to end if we have one more season of 12 teams. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. And maybe everything shifts and you go, "Hey, this year worked out perfect." Maybe it didn't. Maybe more things will arise and you go, "Yeah, this just isn't working. We got to do this or that." But right now it's November 30th, which is a long time in college athletics. Again, I covered conference realignment. I mean, when the Big Ten went from 14 to 18, I had great sources saying Oregon and Washington aren't doing it at 11:30 at night at Eastern time, and then at 7 a.m. I get a text going, "They're going." It's like, so anything can happen in a matter of hours. I mean, that's a huge decision. So November 30th has got plenty of time for them to figure it out.
Yeah, it's an eternity. But something tells me on November 29th there'll be a lot of movement.
Yeah.
So just,
we'll talk then.
Deadlines have a tendency of absolutely making people move the needle. It's amazing that Tyler Shuck got all of his money guaranteed the day before training camp. Isn't that wild? Incredible how things are working nowadays. That's, of course, Tyler Shuck of the New Orleans Saints. Dan, we'll get you out of here with this. You covered realignment. You referenced it yourself. There are a lot of people that continue to speculate that realignment is not done. There are a lot of people that think that realignment is actually only just beginning, and that in 5 years, college football and the landscape might look very, very different. Where do you think we're going to end up, and at what point do you think we get there?
I know a lot of people will say we're going to end up with a super conference, a 36-team league, a 40-team league. I don't know. Here's my issue with all of that and why it would be foolish is obviously we have a 32-team NFL. And if you're going to have a league that's that good and that competitive, someone who doesn't normally go 1-11 is going 1-11. And you don't, everybody in the NFL bottoms out at some point. But when you're 1 and whatever 16 in the NFL, you're 1-11. You get the pick of the best player in the country. In college football, you don't. And so I don't know where this works for teams if you have this super league and you're saying, all right, we're just going to play 10 games against all these great teams and you're going to lose all these. Like, how does this work? Because every team, and people get upset if they're used to it being a team that goes 12-0. You're in Alabama, right? If Alabama goes 8-4 this year, it's not going to be happy. And they're accustomed to something. Well, what if there's a year where they're going 3-9 and it's hard to rebuild out because the competition is so severe? You've cut certain teams out of the SEC and brought in Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State. There's great games, but I just don't know how that works. So I don't see the Super League happening. I also think there'd be unbelievable lawsuits and all of that stuff. But will there continue to be a consolidation at the top? Yes. I just don't know what that will look for. But the idea that conference realignment is over, no way. I mean, we have basically a 5-year truce in the ACC that'll probably last 3 years, and everything will pop again. These guys are constantly looking for a little bit more money, a little bit more competitiveness, a little bit more of an edge. And so, the next big thing is going to be Clemson, Florida State. Where are they going? Who wants them? What makes sense?
Yeah, great stuff. Dan, awesome. Really appreciate it. Glad to have you on our team, and we look forward to visiting again here in the fall.
Anytime, Greg. Anytime. Talk to you soon.
All right, great stuff. Dan Wetzel, senior writer on ESPN. You can follow him at Dan Wetzel on X, and he's got a bunch of interesting stuff up there, including some stuff that we didn't ask him about regarding the sign stealing from Michigan, how there's still stuff going on from that, and how Tony Petitia is now writing a letter to the NCAA arguing that there should be no further punishments. Like, is that still a thing? Apparently so, but check out his stuff, though. He's got all kinds of good stuff, including a great opinion piece on where college football's playoff system might ultimately be heading. All right, when we come back, going to take a quick break, and we are going to continue to dive into the scary games in college football. We've only done 4 teams in the SEC. We still have 12 more to go. We'll tell you what they are next. McElroy and Cubelic, good morning on Jox. 9:20 here in Birmingham, Alabama, all throughout the Southeast. Appreciate all of you that have been telling us over the last couple weeks how often you listen, how often you enjoy the show this time of year, especially as we start to ramp up towards the college football season. Been well traveled the last couple weeks at the Big 12 Media Days, at SEC Media Days, in Savannah with my parents for the 4th of July the entire week. I mean, I feel like I haven't stopped since June 10th, but today's like my first normal day in a month and a half. I feel like I took like an anxiety medicine this morning. I didn't. I just drank my coffee. But the level of like chill I feel in my life right now could not be better. I'm like so happy. Like so happy. It doesn't have anything to do with Polar Bear Services, but if you're looking for a chill in your home, maybe you want that HVAC system running at 65 degrees. That's what Polar Bear Services can do for you. They're the very best when it comes to the HVAC system. Very, very grateful to Wes and the guys for everything they've done for me at the house. They've helped me with electrical. They've helped me with plumbing. They've helped me with small appliances, and they've really helped me with my HVAC system. They're the only group that I would trust, partly because they can do so many different things around your home, and I'm always very, very grateful to know that Polar Bear Services are there for me. So remember, if you have a problem with your electrical, plumbing, heater, air, just pick up the phone and call the Bear. It's 205-497-BEAR. It's 497-BEAR. You know when you just are, like, you go into the summer. I don't know if y'all are at this point yet. Unless you have kids, it's kind of hard to like fully comprehend exactly what summer looks like. Summer is hard. It's awesome and it's so fun, and I wouldn't change a second of it. I love the amount of time we get to spend with our children. But summer is hard. I mean, constantly thinking of different activities, constantly thinking of things to do. What do we do today? Okay, we went to the to the pool 6 of the last 8 days. Like, let's calm it down, please. Like, anything but the pool. It's 1 billion degrees outside. Summer's hard. It's especially hard when you go into it and in March you start putting together your summer schedule and you say yes to everything. And the next thing you know, quite literally, you go Chicago to Huntsville to Dallas to Alexander City to Savannah to Frisco, back to Alexander City, to Atlanta, to Fairhope, then to Vestavia, and here we are. That's all in the last 40 days. So I'm back. I'm in a good place.
Good spot.
Your summer vacation can finally begin.
I feel like I had like
on July 1st.
I feel like I had an IV of Xanax today. Like, I could not be happier. Like, I am just like in such a good place. Nothing to be concerned about. The only thing that we have that's tough this week is that us three are doing the show without Cole, and we want, Cole keeps us on edge a little bit. So, I mean, it's like max. It's like I couldn't be more chill today.
Max chill. That's what
max chill.
Max chill Monday. Who knew?
I am in such a good spot. And this has been the best 40 days ever. Like, I've seen my sister-in-law get married. Amazing. Got to see all my high school buddies in Texas. We do a trip every year. Got to play in 2 member guests. Got to go to Savannah to go see my family for a week. Never been to Savannah before. Went and saw my parents for a whole week. It was amazing.
$50 for a grilled cheese.
Yeah, 14. So got to go to Frisco and go to Big 12 Media Days for the first time. SEC Media Days is always really fun. Like, we got to go to Fairhope, but we was at the Grand Hotel for a night. Like, this has been an amazing 40 days, but it's been nonstop.
Yeah.
Like, I can count on, I literally looked at it since July. Since I got to go to Chicago, was an incredible experience to go up there and work. But I was in Chicago.
Yeah,
I mean, Chicago in the summer there are worse places to be.
Yeah. A lot different from November, December.
Yeah, that's true. It's been amazing, but I've counted how many, quote, normal days I've had since June 11th, and it was 6.
So not even a full week.
No.
Not even a full week.
Inside a month.
Guess what today is, though? Today's day 7.
Day 7.
We are back. All right. On the 7th day, he rests. And I am going to rest today. Just like in Genesis. As I'm reading that right now, that's in my summer. I'm going to read the Bible this year, the whole Bible. I haven't done it in 20 years. I'm going to read the whole Bible, and I'm supposed to do 3 chapters a day in Genesis. Yesterday, first day without anything to do, I literally did all of Genesis.
There we
So
go.
I'm like 9 days ahead.
I'm
I'm like all fired up. Like I'm back. Like I'm really, really happy. So it's a good day, happy day, and can't wait to get going because we are 38 days away till college football season.
Less if you wanted week 0.
Don't count it.
Okay, then yes, I think it's 30.
We have one game week 0 that I'm juiced about, but very stressful game. I think for both Iowa State and Kansas State, but other than that, not a whole lot. All right, so we did games that should scare you. We did Florida, we did Auburn, we did Arkansas, we did Bama. If you missed any of the show, go back, download the podcast, all in hour number 2. Kind of bounce it around. We also, before we even got to Zarzer in the first hour, we did just non-conference games that should be concerning there in the first 3 weeks. So now we're going team by team. We move on now to the Georgia Bulldogs. And Georgia's going to be really good. I don't think anyone denies that. And there's not a ton of like crazy difficult games for Georgia on their schedule, relatively speaking. Like, okay, the Florida game, neutral site, tough. We know that. Bama game at home, tough. We know that. At Tennessee, we know that. But Damian, we'll start with you on this one. What's the game that should scare Georgia fans the most?
It's that trip to Jordan-Hare, October 11th, playing Auburn because, I mean, the last time you were there, it took a Brock Bowers drive to finish that game off. And, you know, people say it's tough to play in Jordan-Hare. And for big games, they've shown that they'll show up for that one. Now, any other game outside of there could be interesting, but I do think Georgia – because of, you know, it's a Deep South Soldiers rivalry, and that trip to Jordan-Hare, October 11th against Auburn is definitely a tricky one.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I get what you're saying. I'm going a different direction, but I'll explain why in a moment. Say, Bear, what's it for you?
It feels like a bit of a cop-out, but if I'm Georgia, there's not one that scares me.
Hey.
But to answer the question, I feel like it's Ole Miss.
Love that.
Yeah.
Ole Miss at home?
Yeah, especially because coming off the Auburn game as well on the road. Ole Miss got you last year. I mean, yes, you're going to be up for that game. However, I do think, I mean, that quarterback has shown that he can kind of put it to you, and that would be the game because I know, yeah, I'm gonna have 100% everything on for Alabama. We've got Texas later in the season. You've got your first real game in Tennessee, so that Ole Miss game kind of feels like right at a spot where if you're not paying attention, you could slip up.
Both are good answers. Both, I think, would be on the short list for me, but not number one. The most difficult game for Georgia this year, the scariest game for Georgia this year is Bama.
Hey.
And here's a slightly different perspective. We all know that Georgia's going to get Bama's best shot, and Bama's going to get Georgia's best shot. That's just the way that game works. But we are now looking at a scenario where Kirby Smart last year lost the game to Kalen DeBoer. They went on to win the SEC and had a great year and went to the Sugar, like all that stuff. It was a good year for Georgia. I know not what they wanted, but still a good year nonetheless. But if you now lose again, this time between the hedges in Athens to Bama in prime time, what is the reaction? It's one thing if Nick Saban's got your number, right? It's one thing if all these other things. It's one thing if you lose to Texas at Texas or Bama at Bama, but to lose at home to Bama, what's the reaction going to be amongst Georgia fans? Well, dang, man, Nick Saban's no longer there, and yet these guys still got our number. That's a tough spot to be in. And ultimately, Georgia went on to achieve more than Alabama last year, but that was kind of a black eye for Georgia last year throughout most of the season with how their defense fared in that game. So that, I think, is the one for Georgia that is, like, in many ways a must win, barring some type of unique and probably strong overreaction to the outcome of one game. So you want to be the alpha dog program in the SEC. A lot of people think you are. A lot of people wonder if Texas has passed you or if Bama's still right there, whatever it may be, whatever the pecking order is. Georgia's always going to have that top dog type mentality, no pun intended. If they lose to Bama and year two of Kalen DeBoer and he loses for the second time to Kalen DeBoer, What's the reaction amongst the fan base? That'll be one that I think there's tremendous fallout. What about Kentucky as we move on next to Kentucky? To me, it's pretty obvious. I think it's at Louisville. I think Louisville's going to be good. I do. I think Louisville's going to be real good. And any game Kentucky gets in the SEC, you probably feel pretty good about, right? Kentucky's probably not going to be favored amongst a ton of folks.
True.
Probably not going to have crazy high expectations. They're going to kind of be the underdog, but they've fared very well against Louisville over the course of Mark Stoops' tenure. And you're on the road now against a team in Louisville that has Jeff Brom back, done a great job in the portal, and has kind of ascended. And with a win, Louisville can kind of establish themselves as kind of the team to beat in that state.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is the one with the most significant consequence for Kentucky.
I mean, when you like your point about Kentucky, you're kind of the underdog in pretty much every game besides, the Eastern Michigans and Toledos of the world. But I think the game against Tennessee, because you get them at home, and yes, Heupel hasn't lost to Kentucky since he's been there, but this is quote unquote going to be the down year. So can you muster up enough to pull off the upset? And again, you get them at home, you've played them tough in certain situations, but now is almost like that. It's like you got to get them now.
Yeah.
Moment.
If not now, when?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Bear, can you get on board with that?
I'm okay with it. If we're looking in conference, I would say Auburn because of all the other games that's on the schedule. I either think you're a healthy favorite or you're desperately looking up at. But with Auburn, you're probably, maybe not pound for pound. Auburn, talent-wise, is better, but where both teams kind of are right now, I feel like they're right at the same kind of level, especially in terms of question marks. And so that's a game that I do think Kentucky could win, but most likely easily lose. But also, if you're going to be the dog that Cole's kind of thinking that this team could be, that's a game you got to win, especially on the road.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm okay with Auburn. I think there's a lot of good options for Kentucky, frankly. I just think the SEC, having that patch, being in the state of Kentucky, being in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, you sit there, you lose that game now to Louisville again.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that say about where Mark Stoops is at? What does that say about where the entire program is at and the foreseeable future for the Wildcats in their own state? We'll go next to LSU. And I think there's a lot of different directions you can go with this one. A lot. Like, we know the game at Clemson, those are two top 10 teams.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough game. You lose that game, no one's going to sit there and say LSU's dead. No one is, because you can bounce back very easily. We've seen LSU do it in the past. This one would have significant implications because that would mean Brian Kelly's now 0-4 in week 1 games. So there'd probably be some strong overreaction, but probably necessary overreaction at the same time. I'm going a different direction. I'm going Florida week 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's one that LSU absolutely has to win. Florida has moderate level expectations. They're improved. They got them last year. Now at night at home, and you lose that game where Brian Kelly's been excellent in his tenure. He's lost just 2 games as the head coach of LSU in Death Valley. But you could start the season 1-2, potentially. That's a hard one, I think, to potentially get over if they lose to Clemson. So I think if they lose to Clemson, and I'm not saying they will, I'm not saying they won't, I think it's going to be a great game. Should go down to the wire. Even if you beat Clemson, you're 2-0 and Florida comes down and Florida beats you?
Yeah.
That would be massive. So to me, it's Florida there in week number 3.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's Florida. And I think for LSU, to your point, you kind of can understand. You lose to Clemson, so be it. It is what it is. The fan base will be unruly. But then if you follow that up in a loss to Florida in week 3 for your SEC opener, that's when it could get overbearing for LSU. And I think I agree with you. It's a must-win game for LSU during that time.
To me, it's the Alabama game because if LSU is going to be the national title contender that most everybody kind of thinks that they are, okay, fine. We can somewhat excuse the Clemson loss, but okay, in theory, you'll probably see them again. You could avenge it later on. But if you are going to be a true national title contender, you're not losing to Alabama. And to get them on the road, too, that would, to me, would make a statement that, okay, yeah, like we are here. We are, like, Kalen DeBoer is not going to run stuff. We are right now. And beating Florida, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, A&M, those will be good wins, but that won't be the statement that Alabama would be.
Tough schedule, man. I mean, I think their schedule is brutal. At Oklahoma, at Alabama. I think A&M's going to be a handful at Ole Miss. That's a rivalry game, tough one there. Florida's early in the year at Clemson. I just think LSU's schedule's a lot tougher than people might realize. We'll go next to Mississippi State as we continue to bounce along here. I think the toughest game for Mississippi State, the scariest game for Mississippi State is at Southern Miss week 1. I know it sounds crazy.
No, you're right.
But, like, that's a rivalry game in state. Hattiesburg's going to be jumping. You're on the road. Southern Miss now has a completely new cast of characters. Charles Huff comes down from Marshall, where he did a really nice job at Marshall, won a lot of games, a physical football team. A lot of those guys that played for Charles Huff went with him to Southern Miss to kind of jumpstart that program. And now Mississippi State comes in hoping for growth, hoping for improvements on the defensive side of the football in particular. And you're chasing ghosts a little bit because you're not sure exactly what you're going to get offensively. So I think that Southern Miss game is the most must win of all the games on the schedule for the Bulldogs.
I'm trying to look at one that's in conference, but I think for Mississippi State, it's very similar to Tennessee when Josh Heupel first got there. I think the system that Libby has, they showed last year they weren't afraid to take the home run balls. Now, they hit them? No. But also, Blake Shapen wasn't at 100%. You never really got into a groove. So if I look at, like, in conference, I think it's the game against Tennessee, September 27th. Similar to Kentucky, this is probably the one chance you got to get a conference win, and you get them early and you get them at home. It may be the only one that you get, and that's the season, that's the SEC opener for you. So if Blake Shapen is 100% by that time, I don't expect you to go out and knock off Arizona State. Yeah, you get them at home, but also as the defending Big 12 champions and sprinkle in Northern Illinois, and to your point, Southern Miss, Alcorn State. That's the game that if you're going to get an SEC win, that's going to be probably your best shot.
Bear?
No, it's Southern Miss without a doubt. And especially with – I wouldn't be surprised if some of them maybe even looking ahead to Arizona State, because that's all of a sudden now a substantially better team than you were thinking, especially when you signed that, let alone what they would have been last year. And they could be overlooking this Southern Miss team that has a lot to prove, and Mississippi State does as well. But that's easily a game that if you automatically start off losing this one, like, the season might already be done if you can't even do that.
Could be. You lose that game, all the goodwill and momentum picked up in the offseason, all the excitement about year 2, you lose that one to a team that is deemed lesser than, and all of a sudden you're having to answer some very uncomfortable questions there in Starkville, Mississippi. All right, when we come back, we still have a bunch of teams to do in the SEC. We have Mizzou, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee, A&M, Texas, and Vanderbilt. We'll answer what their scariest games are next on McElroy and Cubelic. Jox. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, Jox, all over the state of Alabama. Appreciate those of you that are listening in Mobile, Montgomery, and Huntsville. Always fun to visit with you. For those of you listening all over the country at joxfm.com or on the Jox app, we are always grateful to be talking ball this time of year. We're always grateful also to the experience that we have when we shop at Bromberg's. You walk in the door, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Just an elevated experience when you shop with Bromberg's. You can go check them out in Mountain Brook Village and at the Summit. You can check them out online at brombergs.com. It's just a luxury item that you're picking up that might be in your family for multiple generations. You don't want to waste time. You don't want to buy anything that's lower end. You want that one-of-a-kind natural diamond. You want that gold, silver, platinum jewelry that takes the gift that you're receiving and the gift that you're giving to the next level. There's just no better experience than knowing that you got a great deal with the exceptional service, with the exceptional sales staff that you're going to deal with when you go to Bromberg. So go check them out. It's Bromberg's in Mountain Brook Village and at the Summit. All right, we'll continue on. A few other teams that we got to get to before we get you out of here. We have already done almost everybody, but we have a handful of teams left, about 8 teams left. So let's go rapid fire. Missouri, which one we going with here? I think it's Kansas. It's at home. It's a rivalry game. Kansas, I think, is one team that went 5-7 last year. No one's really talking about, but they remain dangerous with their quarterback, Jalen Daniels. What do you think about Missouri's most dangerous game, scariest game on the schedule?
I think it's the trip to Auburn. It's their first road game, and it's the first road game in the SEC against a team that in Auburn on paper has improved. You got them last year on some unfortunate circumstances for the Auburn Tigers, but I think a little bit of it is, Missouri. You've had a little bit of a gauntlet because you at least get Alabama at home. You've got Kansas, but I do think that first road trip that you take in Jordan-Hare could be dicey if you're not clicking at 100%.
Overall, in the SEC, it is Auburn, but overall, it's Kansas because Kansas is really going to be their barometer for the entire season.
I think Kansas can be a tough one. Maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe I just think too much of Lance Leipold. I think it's going to be a really tough game. Let's go next to Oklahoma. To me, the toughest game for Oklahoma for sure is the road trip at South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
You have Texas the week before. You're going to play against the Longhorns. You know you're going to be up for that. I think at South Carolina, you could get off to a great start. You could beat Michigan. You could win Temple. You could beat Auburn at home. You could beat Kent State. Let's say you've beat Texas. There you are. You're sitting there at 6-0 if you beat Texas there on October 11th. Now you go to South Carolina, a team that's dangerous. Might be a little deflated after what was a pretty impressive start to the season. Now you're on the road at South Carolina. So to me, South Carolina on the road for Oklahoma for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's South Carolina. I think we'll know a lot about both of those teams in that matchup.
I think it's Tennessee.
Really?
While I do think, yes, that South Carolina matchup is going to be extremely tough for them, whether or not they get that game, I think revenge is going to be on Tennessee's mind a heck of a lot more. And Oklahoma, like we mentioned a good bit before, this is a 5-game stretch. It's on the road. It's before a bye week. I could see Oklahoma thinking it's a lesser opponent, not taking the game as seriously. I think the Tennessee game probably would scare me more if I'm an Oklahoma fan.
I love that. I can get on board with that. Let's go next to Ole Miss. Kind of bounce it around a little bit. Like I think Ole Miss at Kentucky's dangerous, but Kentucky got them last year. I think they'll have Ole Miss's full attention. I thought for a second maybe Tulane, because Tulane's going to be well coached. They're going to be a well-oiled machine. They'll be a tough game. It's at home though, so I wasn't that concerned. I thought maybe Washington State, because it's an early start. Washington State, they've had this one circled. They've been excited about this opportunity to prove what they can do against the SEC for a while, but I'm taking a different path. I'm going Mississippi State. It's on the road. It's the last game of the regular season. I know it's a rivalry game, but I look at it and I think Ole Miss could very easily kind of back their way into the playoff conversation. Just look at their schedule. Look how it lays out. You lose at Georgia, fine. You lose at Oklahoma, fine. You could be sitting there 9-2. I mean, it's definitely a possibility if you take care of business at home. Now Mississippi State sitting there 4-6, 4-7. All Mississippi State has to play for at this point is to spoil their rivals' chance to be in the college football playoff conversation.
And it's in Starkville.
And it's in Starkville. And it's nooner. Starts early at 11 a.m. on the 28th. So I think that game's extremely dicey for the Ole Miss Rebels.
I would say Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma, especially after the fact that you just played Georgia, depending on how that game is, either Georgia's kind of, physically beating you up a little bit, and maybe you get that one by the skin of your teeth. Then you follow it up with Oklahoma, who by that point, we're gonna know exactly who John Mateer is. And if you haven't, if Gunnar Stockton the week before dices you up, you got John Mateer waiting on you right after that.
I'm the same. That Oklahoma game, it's a trap game. What did they do after the Georgia game last year? The biggest win probably Lane Kiffin has had. What did they do? Florida. Went down to plus Florida. Now, granted, of the 3 losses, that one's probably somewhat understandable, but still, everything was in front of you. All you had to do was not lose, and you went and lost.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster type of experience following Ole Miss sometimes. You don't know what you're going to get week to week. Some weeks are amazing. Some weeks are like, I don't know about that. We'll go next to South Carolina. I think it's at Missouri. It's week 4. You get off to a 3-0 start, might be sitting there top 10, top 12, top 15. And you go to Missouri, a team that's probably not going to be in the top 25. Maybe they are. If they are, probably somewhere between 21 and 25. And you now got to go on the road after what's been a real promising start. I think it's that early game against Missouri is a tough one.
Yep, I'm with you. And I think South Carolina's entering that point of you got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. You can't afford to go up to Columbia and lay an egg, because that's going to put a big, you're going to be behind the 8 ball moving forward from that point. So you cannot go up to Columbia and have a poor showing.
Yeah, that's the one I had too.
Tennessee is next. And I think you could go so many different directions with Tennessee. We've already referenced Syracuse. We think that's a tough game.
Yeah.
Early start, week 1. Don't really know what Syracuse is going to try to attack you with. You have a lot of new pieces, including your quarterback, a lot of new pieces along the offensive line, a few new pieces on defense. Not sure about the health of your corner, Jermod McCoy. Like there's question marks abound, but I'm going to take it one step further. I think on the road at Mississippi State, this is a game where nobody's really going to give Tennessee credit for getting a win in Starkville. But those of us that know the league, people listening to this show, going to Starkville is no easy task. Now, last year was manageable, right? But I do think that group has a chance to be better. I do think that group has a chance to score points. And if it becomes a shootout, do you trust Joey Aguilar to go into a hostile environment and deliver you might need 40 to win that game. You might need 35 to win that game. Do you think he can do it? I hope he can. But I think that's one that's a little dicey. You lose to Georgia, understandable. You lose at Alabama, understandable. You lose against Oklahoma, understandable. But you lose at Mississippi State in a game that you're expected to be getting a W. That's no guarantee. So I think that's a tough road trip for Tennessee there in early October.
Yeah, I think late in the season, I think that matchup going to Gainesville taking on Florida, because you haven't beaten them in 20-something years in the swamp. And, I mean, Florida, at that point, in November last year is when Florida started to turn things around. Now it's, okay, is Tennessee going to, quote-unquote, play spoiler if Florida is starting to – if they pick up right where they left off last season, is Tennessee going to be good enough or bad enough to find a way to play spoiler in Gainesville?
To me, it's the last game of the season. It's Vanderbilt. Never thought I'd say that with Tennessee, but that game, winner could be bowl eligible.
Could be. Yeah. Hopefully Tennessee's bowl eligible before that. But
probably, but
we'll see. You never know. That's for sure. All right, when we come back, we'll be rapid fire. Texas A&M, Texas, and Vandy to put a bow on the show. It's next on Mac and Cube. Alabama heat and humidity can be brutal. Don't let it affect your home and family. Keep them comfortable with an affordable Trane cooling system. They've been recognized as America's most trusted brand 11 consecutive years, and they're the official cooling partner here at Jox. Find a comfort specialist near you at Trane.com. All right, rapid fire. Just tell me if you agree or disagree. We'll start with A&M. I think toughest game on the schedule is at Arkansas. Arkansas hadn't beaten A&M in a million years. Sam Pittman knows he's got to have it. To me, that road trip to Arkansas, first time they're not in Jerry World in a while, I think that's going to be a very, very difficult game for the Aggies this year.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right, Texas. Moving on. Everyone knows Ohio State's tough. Everyone knows that game against Georgia's tough. Everyone knows the game against Oklahoma's tough. The one that I'm looking at, though, is at Florida. Mm-hmm. That's a game that no one's really talking about. It's kind of overlooked a little bit. It's on October 4th. That one could be really tough for the Longhorns as they try to break in some new pieces along the offensive and defensive lines.
I agree 100%. And we saw LSU go down to the Swamp and get beat last year. We saw Ole Miss go down to the Swamp and get beat last year. Yes, Texas, they better be on their P's and Q's.
I'd put A&M in there, but at that point, at the very, very end of the season, you know what both teams are, so you know what you're going to get one way or the other.
I'm with you 100%. Lastly, Vanderbilt. Do we dare say Georgia State again? Like, I mean, I don't want to do it, but it's like, I feel like they'll rise to the occasion against teams that they are complete underdogs against.
Yep.
But they'll play to the level of the competition.
Yep.
Now, I don't know who's going to be better between Georgia State and Utah State, but either one of those I think is a little bit dicey. But that at Virginia Tech game, that could be a big one to continue some of the momentum created last year.
I'm with you.
To me, if we're looking in conference, I look at Missouri. That's a game. If they're going to replicate what they did last year and have a good season, they got to get that game.
Yeah. Could also be LSU in some ways. I mean, LSU's got all the weapons in the world, but still questions on defense. And you look at how the Vandy's going to make things difficult with Diego Pavia and co., that could be a tough game. And if they got that one, man, look out. Could be very, very exciting for the Commodores yet again. Thanks to Taylor Zarzer. Thanks to Paul Finebaum. Thanks to Dan Wetzel. Thanks to John Saber. And thanks to Damian Mitchell. Did a great job here. We'll pass it on over to Three Man Front next. Mac.